Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Victory Never Sleeps. My name is Whitten Brandy, and I am joined by our beautiful Githia Anna, Githia Lauren, Githia Katie, Githia Heather, and Githia Sheila. And we'll also be joined by another guest, our Githia student, Sarah Alt, who will be popping in to join us later. So I want to welcome you all to the show. It's always special when there's a group this size on Victory Never Sleeps, and it's always special when it's the lovely ladies that I talk to on a regular basis, that I can go to when things are hard, that I can celebrate with when things are good, and that I have the opportunity to share this experience with. So thank you to each and every Githia who is on this call. I appreciate you being here. Thank you guys for being here. So we got a few top of the show things. First thing that we want to go ahead and note is thank you for all of the questions that have already been emailed in and sent in. For me and the other ladies on this call, you make us feel loved and popular. We appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Let's just start off thanking GW Farnsworth, who donated $25 to VNS and $25 to Phrasehoff. So we appreciate your generosity every time that you donate. It means a lot. It means a lot to your folk. It means a lot to the church, and we appreciate everything that you're doing there. A couple other top of the show things. We do have several things going on. First, let's talk about where you can find us. If our producer Nick could put up all of those awesome places where you can find us on Odyssey, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, VK. We also stream on several other areas. Yeah, there we are. Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon. We are just about everywhere that you are. So you can catch us on any of those platforms. If you have not already, please make sure that you find us on Twitter. We're very active. We publish all of the good things that we're doing, all of our people getting together, all of our holidays, all of our community service, and all of the wonderful things that are happening in the AFA. Definitely check us out there. You can find us at Folk As True on Twitter, or on X, formerly Twitter, whatever the kids are saying these days. Couple other things that we got going on, and we are going to be fortunate to have several ladies that work very closely with the ASATRU Academy. But if you are interested in registering your child for the ASATRU Academy, that is open and rolling now. You can learn more at asatruacademy.org, and we will talk a little bit later on this evening about when we get Sarah on, a little bit about what the ladies on this call do for the Academy, the support that the Academy gives to our parents, and how you can get involved. So make sure you visit asatruacademy.org and take a look at that. We've also got a few events coming up. If producer Nick could just help me out and start throwing those up in chronological order. The first one that we've got coming is going to be Frey Faxi at Baldershoff, and that's going to be the 4th weekend of August, the 22nd through the 24th. Please come out. It's going to be our 5th anniversary. That's a big deal for myself and for Githia Anna, who was there building that place with me when it still was terrifying and scary, but yet wonderful at the same time. So it is our 5th anniversary this year of having that building. So we are very, very excited and very, very proud. The building is beautiful. The people are wonderful. It's going to be good food, good frith, and worship of our God. So please join us for that. We've got a lot of exciting things going on. I hear that there's going to be an ice bucket challenge with the leadership of Baldershoff. So if anybody's interested in that, there is a 5-gallon bucket of icy cold water with ice in it, just waiting to be dumped on the heads of leadership. And I hear the masked folker who runs around and terrorizes us at events, we can never catch him. He's in, he's out. Senior folk builder Jason Gallagher has decided that during the Ice Bucket Challenge, if the masked folker shows up, we are to tie him down and we are to dump an ice bucket on top of that man's head. If we can catch him, that's the thing. If you can catch him. We don't know who he is. He's a man of mystery, but He shows up and he terrorizes us at our event. So if we see this guy, everybody grab him, put him in a chair. We're dumping some water on him. So says senior folk builder Jason Gallagher. He's yet to meet the man. For some strange reason, every time senior folk builder Gallagher leaves, the masked folker shows up. We seem to think it's because he's terrified of Jason, you know, because of he's Jason. So if you see him, you grab him. All right, all kinds of other cool things we got going on. Next event that we have coming up following Freyfaxi is going to be Winter Nights. Stay tuned for the location on that. We're looking at the dates of August 10th through the 10 through 12, and you're going to see a lot of amazing leadership there. Githia Katie will be there running the events and making sure everybody's having a good time. So make sure you check back for that. Also, for our ladies in the AFA, this is not going to be a surprise. For some of them, it might be if you are not in our MeWe group, which if you're not in our MeWe group, you really should be, because that's where you get all of the special announcements and previews of all the things that we've got coming. But producer Nick, do you have our ladies retreat coming up? Look at that. We are holding a ladies only retreat in 2026. Now this says September 11th through the 13th. This is September 11th through the 13th, 2026. So you have a year to budget. You have a year to plan. You have a year to find somebody to watch the kids. You have a year to prepare your husband or your significant other for your absence, to spend 3 days of personal and spiritual development with your sisters in the AFA. And that will be at Odenshoff in California. Tickets will be on sale in October, and they are very reasonably priced, as this is more of a spiritual development for our ladies and a chance to get away and do our thing. So look for that coming in October for tickets, but those are the dates there, and it will be at Odenshoff in California. Plans are in place, schedules are done, menu is prepared. We are ready to go. We just need you. Couple other things that we've got going on in there. Please make sure that you are checking runestone.org. Check that calendar for all of the amazing events that we have going on all across the country and all across the world for the Oz True Folk Assembly. Also, check out your district websites. The Odenshoff district, Baldershoff, Thorshoff, Njordshoff, they're all right there, my friends. Check those out, check those calendars, see what's going on near you. You can't say that there's nothing going on near you, because there is. There is. You can also check the calendar for all of the great, if you are isolated and you're looking for some time to spend with your folk, there are all kinds of virtual moots, classes, and meetings that you can attend. Those can also be found on the websites. So make sure you check those out. And update that we've got for Freyhof Fund. Let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. That's exciting. We are currently, as of right now, we have $8,920 in that war chest. And if you want to contribute to that, you can go donate to the Freyhof Fund on runestone.org. Every little bit helps, and you guys are making that number climb higher and higher and higher every single week. Also, we do have the Freyhof fundraiser, and I'm going to let Katie talk about this here in just a moment. Donation level of 500 or more. Is that correct, Katie? Can you talk about these horns a little bit?
Yes. So anybody who has donated to the Freyhof Fund from the beginning of the Freyhof Fund, so heading back to 2022, rather, I think. Cliff remembers the exact date, but from the moment of its inception until the day we dedicate, anybody who donates cumulatively $500 or more will be elevated to Carl level donator. Our Carl level donators all receive one of these horns that I am carving. They all will look like the one you see pictured here. The horn will be different. Some of them won't, be darker horns or whatever, but it'll be this design, and they are our Freyhof donation. horns. You can't get them after the dedication. Once the Hoff has been dedicated, we will no longer be giving out these. You'll also get your name on our plaque of recognition, which means that for the rest of time, your name will be in the Hoff as being recognized for somebody who went above and beyond and contributed financially to the making Phrase Hawk happen. And anybody who donates $1,000 or more cumulatively up until the dedication will receive this horn. They will get their name on the plaque, and they will also be given a special AFA card. We gave these out at something similar. I think Sheila could probably talk on it better, but like a little wooden card just saying you're an extra special AFA member, and you'll also receive 3 free Phrase Hawk National event visits for you and your family if you have one. So as long as you are a member in good standing, you have the opportunity to come to 3 national events in Phrase Hawk for free to use whenever, because I'm not going to say you have to use them consecutively. You can't always get away. So
thank you, ma'am.
That's that.
Speaking of wonderful ways that you can help your folk and honor the gods, if producer Nick's got something that shows the other wonderful ways that you can donate, we do have all kinds of other donations. We've got folk services, we've got BNS, we've got the Academy, we've got our fund for South Africa. We have a ton of different ways that you can get involved. Okay. Also, speaking of getting involved, does everybody on this call know that everybody here knows what a folk builder is, and everybody here knows what a Githia is and what a Gothi is? Do you guys realize how much we rely on volunteers that don't necessarily want to be leadership or can't be leadership at this time? We can always use volunteers to make the engine run and to make the church go. So if you are interested in volunteering, whether it be in editorial, music, writing, Sunday school, helping us with that, any of those things that you have a talent for, there's something that we can do to help you get involved. So if you're not in a place in your life where you would like to be leadership, or you're not in a place in your life where you can do that, you can still be involved. We have plenty of volunteers that help with Hoff stewardship, taking care of the kitchens, helping with the Academy, helping with all kinds of different ministries that we have, classes, artwork, publications. We've got lots of things that you could do that you don't have to be an oath folk builder or an ordained Gothi or Githia to do. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to us. Let us know what your talents and interests are, and we'll find a spot. All right, and it looks like we do have all kinds of questions that are already piling up. So before we get into the main event of the night, which I hope you guys enjoy, and you get an inside look to what happens when all of the Githias get together, that's going to be our main event. But let's go ahead and get some of these questions knocked out of the way. Witten East, doesn't that sound nice? Doesn't that sound nice? Witten East asks, good evening, ladies. For each of you, is there a particular Asanya that you have a special relationship with? So since I'm just going to go in the order that I've got up at the screen. So Githia Anna, is there a particular Asanya that you have a special relationship with?
Well, Air, first and foremost. Air is very much tied in with my profession as a nurse. And also recently Iduna, but I don't know if I want to be giving away what we're going to talk about. So I'll just leave it at Air and Iduna.
That's fair. Githia Lauren, do you have someone in particular that's special to you?
Yes, I'm also kind of attached to AR. I've turned to her for healing in my life, and I've witnessed other people turning to her too. And she is very kind and attentive if you reach out to her. So I kind of I feel I have a connection to her too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Githia Sheila, is there a particular Asanya that you are close to and have built a relationship with?
If you are at our summals that we do at Odinsoft, you'll hear me oftentimes hail AIR for the same reason. We have so many people in the AFA who are in need of all kinds of help, whether it's spiritual help or help with illnesses, those kinds of things. And it seems to be pretty ongoing. So I have called on her many, many times on behalf of the folk. But personally, over the years, I have called on Gefjon a lot. And Gefjon is a goddess that we often will remember at Charming of the Plough for her role in our mythology of creating part of Denmark, cutting off an island there. And having been to Denmark back in 2013, the whole place has a real soft spot in my heart. So I love thinking about her, the whole idea of the plow in February and all. So in decorating her plow with flowers, which is what we do. Anyway, so Gefjon has been historically one that I've called on many, many times and done bloat to, in fact.
Thank you, ma'am. And Sarah, is there a particular asana or few asana that you are building relationships with that you have thoughts on, close to?
I have a very close relationship with Frigg, and over the last year, I've been developing a relationship with Vor that has been pretty cool for me. Mm-hmm. So
wonderful. And for those, I told you guys our Githya students, Sarah would be attending the call here, popping in. Everybody say hello to our Githya student, Sarah. We are all so proud of her. That is why she is on this call right now, is she has made so many contributions, not just to the church, but to the core of Githya, that the Githya that you see sitting here with you. So she has been amazing to work with as a friend, as a folk builder, and now as a Githya student. So on behalf of all of the people sitting on this call, we appreciate you, ma'am, and we are glad that you are here with us.
Thank you.
And Githya Katie, is there a particular asana that you are building relationships with, have a good relationships with?
Yeah, I have. It's ever evolving, obviously, because as we learn and we grow, we learn new things about ourselves, and it attracts us. It attracts us to different things. I don't know. When I became a mom, I became much more in tune with Frigg than I had ever been previously. Obviously, being a mom makes sense. Also, working with Our Ladies and Air's Blessings helped me really build a relationship with Air, and I see in some of our comments over on YouTube that people have commented on the fact that AFA has a very strong Air blessing, like an Air cult, I guess, and it's really true. A lot of our women work very closely with Air to help heal our folk, and that's really cool. But those are my two main ones. I'm beginning to grow. I'm beginning to branch out and learn new things. So who knows? Who knows where it will be next year if we have this chat again?
Mm-hmm. Githya Heather, is there a particular asana that you are close to?
Well, when I joined the AFA, it was Frigg, because even now that my kids are adults, I still worry about them constantly. And then 2 years ago, I formed a very, very special bond with Air. So those are the two right now. As us ladies have been working, I've been, working on building more relationships as we go.
So for me, I try to have that relationship with all of them, but the one that I feel that I work with's not the right word, but the one that I think I've built the strongest relationship with, especially through the gift cycle and through work at the altar and things like that, would be Sauga. Sauga, we are not going to fall down a rabbit hole this early on VNS. And for everybody who knows what I'm talking about, I did it myself, ladies. I covered up the rabbit hole before we jumped down it. But Sauga has always been very, very dear to me. I have worked very, very hard to build that relationship, just for all the wonderful things that she can do and she can give guidance on, and what we can turn to her for. But that is for down the road. We'll get into her in a little bit. Also, while we have been on, we do have a few more donations that I do want to give thanks for. Alexander Casto donated $100 to Frey's Hoff Fund. Thank you, sir. That is very, very deeply appreciated. And Ronald Blake bought us 5 coffees. 5. So that's $25. So thank you so much, Ronald Blake. And it's hail all. Thank you so much, sir. It's very appreciated. All right. So we do have a few more questions before we get down to business. All right. Austin in Wisconsin asks, good evening, ladies. Why are AFA women the best? I'm going to start off with, we're going to go the reverse order now. So Githia, Heather, why are the AFA ladies the best?
Because we are. I think it's because the bonds that we have together. Even if we're very, very far away, we're really, really close. Even if we don't talk every day, there are bonds between us that, you know, the Frith and the bonds that we build with the ladies. It's different than what I call the outside world. I have my AFA world and then the outside world. So I always say the ladies in the AFA are different than the ladies in the outside world, you know?
Absolutely, ma'am. Githia, Katie, why are AFA women the best?
I think a lot of it has to do with most of us we choose to be here. You know, we recognize the flaws in how things are done in the outside world as far as how women treat women, as far as how women are treated or expected to act in certain social ways, and most of us reject those social norms to choose, and we choose to be here. We choose to be living in a way that is acceptable for us when we want to face our ancestors and our gods as honestly and nobly as any of our men do, and so we choose to live that way. And because we're all choosing to live this way, I think that helps build those bonds that Heather was talking about, because we're not just here. We're here because we want to be here, and because we're Austrian women, and not very many women can say that.
Thank you, ma'am. Sarah, why are AFA women the best?
We are very welcoming and supportive of each other. My background is very much a place where women were background noise, and we are partners. We help maintain the balance. I often think back on when I first came to the AFA. My husband had already been a member, and going up to spend time with the Northern Blood Kindred was just such an eye-opening experience for me. The women in that kindred just welcomed me with open arms, and they explained the things with bloat, and they made me a part of everything. And it was that welcoming love that they showed me made me want to emulate it to other women. We're awesome.
We are. Githia, Sheila, why are AFA women the best?
It's one thing. Elsa Drew is who we are. It simply is who we are. We're meant to be here. We know that. We encourage others to find this way. We so honor life from birth to death that everyone here I feel is my family. And it's sad to say, but we're often much closer to our folk in the AFA than we are our personal families. I think a lot of us would like to correct that, but times being what they are, make it very difficult. But there's true commitment with all the leaders. All these ladies that we have here are simply, each and every one is distinct and wonderful, and that's the way it should be.
Githia Lauren, why are the AFA women the best?
Yeah, the women and the women in the AFA are genuinely the most, like, the kindest, smartest, like brightest, most attuned to like the best things in life, like women you'll ever encounter. And I'm really honored to be in the company of all of you. I think we're like that maybe just because we're like attuned to things maybe that other women aren't, perhaps, whether it's the ancestors or our gods and our folk, and also we kind of don't have the same kind of hang-ups about our men that some other women do, perhaps. we love our men and we support them, and we don't have kind of a grudge against them, perhaps, as like society does, things like that. But we have the best women.
We do. Githiana, why are we the best?
We are the best because we are comfortable here. This is our home. You're always comfortable at home. We're also the best because our men are the best, and we are constantly reflecting that back to one another. And then we're the best because we've been surrounded by the best of our folk. And again, we're always reflecting that greatness back at each other.
Thank you, ma'am. We do have another question from Austin. I think I'm going to give this one to Sarah, because this is actually something that Sarah and I talk about a lot. So Sarah, I'm going to read this one to you, okay? It says, a question for any who would like to answer. For those new to Asatru like myself, what should we do if we wish to build a personal relationship with a particular Aesir? Thank you for all you do.
I would start by just having a conversation with them, talking to them as if they were right in front of you, quieting your mind and listening, and hearing what they have to say with you. Also start building that gift cycle. Leave them an offering of something you think that they would like, and just talk to them. I often say that before you start with the gods, start with your ancestors. Will make having that relationship with the gods and building on it too, because those are people you already know, and you already know they love you. So while you're talking to them and you're building that relationship, it helps you transition over to the gods.
Now, I know that Sarah has a very, very, very devout daily practice, especially when it comes to her ancestors and her altar work. Just because it kind of applies to what Austin is asking, is there anything about that you would like to share about what you do day to day to build that relationship?
I call it having coffee with my grannies. I get us both a cup of coffee. I quiet my mind and listen to my heartbeat. I'll put my hand so that I can feel it, and I'll start concentrating on the fact that same heartbeat goes all the way down your line throughout all your ancestors. And I'll start talking to my female ancestors that I call my grannies, and I'll just see what they have for me that day. And it's very calming. It's very reassuring, and it's a very grounding way to start your day. Or at least it is for me.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question that we got, again, we are going to get to the main topic of this evening, but y'all were so excited to send, get your some some emails. We're going to answer those right away. So I'm going to give this one to Githya Anna. So Githya Anna, I'm going to read this one to you. Curious, the aesthetics obviously exist, but what do you get from this faith? What do you get from Asatru, Anna?
I get a solid base on which to build myself up. I'm not practicing a faith that's been borrowed. I'm not on borrowed spiritual ground. This is who I am. It's helping me reconnect that line all the way back. It's not so much like what I can really get, but what it's what I can do with it.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question that we got, Githya Sheila, I would like you to take this question. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. It says, are any of your locations in Utah? So are any of your locations in Utah? If not, would you be willing to eventually build one in Utah with Utah's reputation for being mostly Mormons? Do we got people in Utah? Do we got things going on in Utah? And what do we talk about expanding in Utah? I'll give that to you.
Well, I wish we, yes, that would be nice to expand in Utah. Please bring some Utah people to us. We have a few people out there, but you know, it's very difficult to get people who are kind of spread apart to get together, to connect and have meaningful experiences together. We always say it's best to meet in person, face to face. We've got lots of wonderful things online that we offer everybody. But yes, of course, we would love it. Our Ulterior Githya Talks, we're going to have a Hof in every state. That is our goal. So we hope you help us do that. Right now, we're not anywhere near that. We encourage people in Utah to come out to Odin's Hof, which is the nearby Hof. Yeah, it's a long trip, but it's an easy one. It's across the desert. Just head west. And we'd love to have you come out. We will make sure that if you can swing 4 days, a day in, a day out, and a couple of days with us, it's going to be life-changing. And you will get plenty from an experience being at Odin's Hof that will last you for a long time until you get your own Hof in Utah.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. One more serious question. Well, a couple more serious questions. But this one is going to really show us the personalities of each and every Githya on this call, because it is a question that is asked of each member of leadership when they join the ranks of leadership. And that question is given to us by Sierra Chapman. It says, Githya's, what is the superior condiment? Blue cheese, ranch, or honey mustard? Now, before we answer this question, your answer will reflect who you are as a person, which house you belong to, where you need to be sorted, whatever. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So, Githya Heather, what is the superior condiment?
I have to say ranch or honey mustard, not blue cheese.
Githya Katie.
I cannot tell you how much I despise the fact that this thing is still going on. But also, for all of the people who have been here since it started, which is not most of us, the correct answer is blue cheese. It has always been blue cheese. Honey mustard wasn't even a thing until recently. And it could just die and everything would be good. But blue cheese, always. The rest of you are wrong.
Sarah, what is the superior condiment?
It is the honey mustard. It is 100% any kind of mustard over blue cheese. 100%.
Githya Sheila, honey mustard, ranch, or blue cheese, ma'am?
Well, if you'd asked me years ago, it would have been blue cheese. But with age, I'm mellowing out to ranch. I can use ranch just about any old time. Very simple.
Githya Lauren.
Well, I enjoy an occasional blue cheese or a honey mustard dipping sauce. I do enjoy ranch, I believe, the most.
Get you, Anna.
I don't like any of them.
Oh!
I like Italian salad dressing. Like, that's it. Like, I'm sorry.
That is the only other response I accept, just so you all know.
If you're being sorted into houses, I guess I'm homeless. I don't know.
I am officially filing for divorce from every single one of you. Disowning. Except for Anna. Anna wins.
I'm going to jump on the blue cheese supremacy, you guys. Like, I'm going to jump on blue cheese supremacy. You know why? Because I'm cultured. Okay? So for those of you that are like, what in the world are you doing? You need to understand a part of being leadership is not just the producer's blue cheese, sophisticated choice. One of the things that we need to understand is being a member of leadership is not just your nose to the grind and solving problems all day long. Being a member of leadership is also being part of a family. It's literally a table of your brothers and sisters where you could go to with your worst day, your best day, and argue about condiment supremacy. It is about building that camaraderie, about building that frith. So for those of us who are like, this is not a serious conversation, this has no business being an Oz, let me tell you why it does. Because frith is a huge part of what we do. Building frith, building camaraderie, having that relationship, having that give and take from each other, giving and receiving, sharing that relationship. How do we build relationships, right? We work hard together, we're loyal to each other, and we laugh together. Okay, so for those who might think that this is a silly conversation, it is. But it also shows you when, as soon as I started talking about this, everybody's face lit up because we knew exactly where this was going. So back to business, ladies. All right, I'm going to give this one over to Githia Katie. Githia Katie, where will Freya's Hof be located? Not Freyshof. Or I think you meant Freyshof. I got a note that said they meant Freyshof. So where will Freyshof be located, Githia Katie?
It is most likely to be in northeastern Ohio. Sorry, I had to think about which side was east and which side was west because I still do this to figure out which side is left, you know. It'll probably be in Ohio, most likely. And hopefully before the end of the summer, if not that, then definitely, hopefully before the end of the year. But I will not speak in absolutes because I believe that that is bad luck, and we do not wish to have bad luck. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, we do have a question from Wit and Spawn. Thank you for joining us, Wit and Spawn. I'm a Spawn fan. Thank you for being here. So question, what's a good way to construct prayer or invocation to the Holy Asenath? All right, so I like this question because, and I'll have some of my ladies jump in with me here too. Prayer for me is a very, very, very big part of my practice. I have shared prayers that I've written and prayers that I do daily with all of the Aesir, all of the Asenir. I have one for all of them, right? But what goes into constructing prayer or invocations? That depends on you, right? If you want to follow the traditional cadence and how things were originally written, I am not the expert on that, but Wit and Spawn is, and if he could pop some recommendations down in there, that would be great, down in the chat for you guys. So as far as the traditional construction, I am not good at that. My brain doesn't work that way. I deem myself a wonderful, terrible poet, right? I think that my ancestors appreciate it. I hope that the gods appreciate my effort, but I know that I'm a terrible, wonderful poet. But I put all of my sincerity and all of the menial talent that I have into doing that. So when I do prayers, I prefer to have them as something that I can easily memorize. I love repetitive prayer. You know, I like doing prayers in sets of 9 or 9 sets of 9. I love the repetitiveness of it. So my prayers tend to be short, sweet, and to the point, but have sort of a sing-song rhyming rhythm to them to help me remember the cadence, because I like that repetition. Many of our women have absolutely beautiful singing voices, and their form of prayer is song. Their form of invocation is song. That is absolutely beautiful. I would sing for you, but y'all would never come back. This would be the last episode of VNS you would ever come to, so we won't do that today. So it really depends on you. It depends on your relationship with them. It depends on how much you want to devote. It depends on whether you would prefer a mantra versus a prayer versus a song. You might be very, you know, highly ritual minded, where you have everything written down in a book and you repeat that when you do your prayers in a very ritualistic way. I have seen that as well, where they are very, very long, and it's almost like a whole story, right? Do they have it memorized by the time they do it for the 50th time? For the most part, but they read from it. It's a form of devotion and a form of prayer for them. So really, it all depends on you. As far as the traditional construction of that, I am not the expert on that. I have listened to Svan quite a bit, but I would not dare to repeat his intelligence because I would probably repeat it incorrectly. But for me, that's kind of how I form those. Does any of our ladies have any recommendations for that? For forming your own form of prayer or mantra or meditation or anything along that line? Does anybody want to jump in there?
Sure. So one of the things that I think is really important to remember is that it can be simple and easy. It doesn't have to be complicated. Sorry, I get distracted easily. And I also make faces, which I'm sure you've noticed, and I wiggle a lot. I don't know how to sit still. I don't know. I'm watching all the ladies on the screen, and they're all so still, and I sit to myself, I've thought to myself more than once, like, how do they do it? How do they sit so still? I'm one of the women who likes to sing. I don't think I have a particularly great singing voice, but it's not about whether or not my voice sounds good. It's about the intention behind the singing. So I have like 1 or 2 tunes that I use, and I'll just like, if I'm trying to focus on Freya and pray to Freya, I might sing like the one I have for her is Lady Freya, Vanadis, Vanadis, and I'll just kind of like I'll just repeat it out loud over and over and over again as I'm focusing on her, because it's like a chant at that point. And that's one of my favorite ones that I use. I use that particular tune a lot. I literally can take Frigga and just add 3 different names to call her, 3 different kennings, and add that in there. And you build off of that as you go. As you get comfortable, it just starts to build off of itself naturally. So the best thing I can suggest that anybody do is just take their time, and there's no right way or wrong way. Singing works. Sometimes I galder, like if I'm thinking of Odin, I might galder Wunjo, or, you know, Algis for Freyr, you know. The most important thing when you're choosing to honor and pray to the gods is to talk to them and to just take the time to build a connection with them in a way that suits you best. So I know that doesn't really answer the question, but also there is no definite answer to that question either, because everybody's going to do it their own way. And it's important to find a way that's comfortable for you.
So I'll share a little bit. And I know I've talked to the Githias about this quite a bit. Sarah and I have talked about this quite a bit as well, but I have 3 different kinds of prayers. I mean, 4 if you count this other one, but we'll stick to just prayers to the Asyr or the Aesir. So I have my prayer. It's like a poem, right? I also do, and some of you have been there when we've done this, but I do what's called the Litany of the Aesir, or the Litany of the Asyr. Some of you have participated in that before. And what that is, and everybody gets afraid with the words, a litany is literally a list, you guys. It's a list. And what that list is going through and chanting the names of the gods in repetitions of 3 by 3. Okay. And in between that, we're doing breath work to focus. And we go through, when we're at the Hof, we kind of keep a little bit simple. We do the Hofs we have and the Hof we want. You know, so we're always, you know, giving thanks for the Hofs we already have and focusing on that, and looking towards to the Hof that we're working on. And when you have a large group of people, it's really, really wonderful to hear, you know, the women calling out in a different tone than the men, in a different cadence, where the men are going, oh, then, oh, then, oh, then. The women are very at a feminine tone, longer and more peaceful. Oh, then, you know, and it's beautiful to hear when you have a large group of people. When that's happening, what you can do is put a Gothi or a Githi in the center, calling out worship to that particular Aus or Asinu, thanking them for the things that we've received. And it's not so much, you know, a give and take where we're giving honor and respect and we're asking for something in return. In return, it's not. We're not asking for anything. We're just giving worship. The other form of that I do is what we call what I call like an adoration, where I focus primarily on only one of the Aesir, or only one of the Asinir, and I'm focusing on that. And when I do that adoration, it's very repetitive, and you get into this zone where we pay attention to what we hear, what we think, what we smell, what we see, and it's a time to receive inspiration. So when I'm doing an adoration, I want to receive inspiration during that worship. And then I have just my regular prayers that I do. So those are the 3 types of prayers that I do. Just throwing that out there. If anybody's curious, you can hit me up on the side on those things. There's a beautiful baby.
I was gonna add, like, speaking like as a collective, like using words like us and we instead of I, when you're doing prayer to God.
Yes, I do that a lot. You know, when I am not praying to the gods, I, as a member of the folk, am praying to the gods, right? I don't want to jump too far down a rabbit hole, so everybody get your snare out, right? Get ready to catch me. But I've talked about the bonfire, right? Where when the folk worship the gods, that all of that energy and all of that honor and worship, it creates the giant folk flame, right? And that represents the beauty, the power, and the might of our folk soul. That folk flame is the beauty of our souls. And as we worship together, that fire gets bigger and stronger and brighter. Now, every once in a while, you're going to see like a spark pop off of that bonfire, right? Do the gods see that? Yeah, they do. That spark, that momentary spark, that is individual worship, right? We spin that wheel of worship faster when we do it together. You know, we will sometimes do coordinated prayer, coordinated work, coordinated altar time to help that communal work together. Even though we're spread all over the country, there's times when we'll set up where we want to do this at the same time and work together and pray together, even if we're miles apart. So just because you are miles apart from each other does not mean that you cannot still have that sense of community and build that fire at that same time. Okay, I'm going to get out of the rabbit hole. We're going to go forward. All right. Pam asks, is Frith natural or something learned? Who would like that one? I'm going to leave that one open. Which one of our Githias? Go ahead, Anna. Is Frith natural or something learned?
I think it is very natural for us. It's naturally, I think it's naturally a part of, you know, being a woman is to seek out that social interaction and to, you know, build those bridges between people. What I think it maybe is the learned part is an aversion towards frith, where we're taught to compete with one another, where we're taught to push other people away. So it's, if you just let it be, it's not learned. Now, if you've, through whatever has happened in your life, if you've developed an aversion to it, then it's something that you may need a little bit of help with relearning.
So it's more or less natural if the learned process is there, it's more of a deprogramming rather than having to learn, because it comes as a natural thing, but you might have to deprogram yourself from all of the societal influences, bad experiences, or trauma that you might have. You might have to deprogram yourself a little bit, but yeah, I agree with Anna. I think it's a natural thing. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of effort to deprogram the bad habits, or, I mean, to be honest, some of the trauma or the experiences that, you know, people go through. And then Major Hicks, this one's for Sarah. So Sarah, this was in regards to Coffee with Grannies. He asked, like meditation?
No, I don't think it's, for me, it's not like meditation, because it doesn't feel the same way when I'm meditating as it does that morning thing. It's more the ritual that I do. But no, I wouldn't call it meditation.
Okay. And then Katie, this one's for you specifically, ma'am. Your son wants to know, what do you like to do most?
If that isn't like one of the most broadest open-ended questions ever. I like to cook, and I like to spend time with my kids, and I like to carve horns and carve stuff out of wood. And I like to sew. I like to do a lot of things, but I don't know if I had to choose what I like to do the most. It's probably spending time with Owen and Alice. And sometimes Daddy too. Mostly Owen and Alice.
All right. And this one, Githia Lauren, I'm going to direct this one your way. And this comes from Finn Wraith. If anyone speaks another language, does prayer feel different when praying in another language? And he says, from personal experience, I think it at least somewhat does.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think it does. I'm kind of rededicating myself to learn more Old Norse right now. I'm doing a language course, and I try to do it daily. I remember the first when I first started in Asatru, I started doing like things like the hammer rite, you know, when I was, you know, hallowing the space, and I would do it in Old Norse, and I didn't know anything else besides like the hammer rite, you know. So I'm going to say like Helga Vetata og Halvor, and like it feels very different. It feels like sacred in your mouth, which is kind of a weird way to put it, but it kind of does. It has a very different vibration to it. So I would say it definitely does. Yeah. Because it's you know, a lot of these old other languages are what our ancestors thought and spoken and worshipped in as well. So it'll always bring a different feel to it if it's something's in another language.
Yeah. And Githia Heather. I'm gonna give this last preemptive question. You guys were questions crazy. We're 9 o'clock. We haven't even started the main topic yet, y'all. All right. So this last question before we get started, I'm going to give this one to you, Githia Heather. This comes from Alexander, and he asks, what are some ways us menfolk, I think he means could get more comfortable calling upon the Austinir?
I don't think it's any different. You have to just start off building that relationship. You know, you have to crawl before you run. So you start small, and then build up to, you know, something bigger. Just start by talking to them, you know, whatever's on your mind or your heart that you need to say to them. When I do it, I always, like I said, do it as an all, not a me. I think that's a big thing. But I don't think talking to any of the gods and goddesses, you do it any differently, in my opinion. You might say different things, you know, of course, for each one, the meaning or what you're praying for. But I also don't really think there's a wrong way, as long as your intentions are good and you're, you know what I mean? Like, everybody does things differently. So there's not like a textbook way to do it, if that makes sense. I don't know if that helps.
It does. It does. When I started building that relationship, so I think as like a feminine spiritual being, you know, speaking to our feminine deities, I think it's a little bit of an easier connection, because I also feel it's a little bit easier connection of our men to the Aesir. Doesn't mean I can't talk to Thor. Doesn't mean I can't worship Odin correctly. It doesn't mean I can't build a relationship with Balder, right? But that was my first steps to talking to the Aesir were the same as talking to Asimir. I just started. You're correct. Yeah. And anybody else want to add to that? Katie?
Yeah, I wanted to women are inherently a part of all of our lives. You have a mother, you have a grandmother, some of us have sisters. We've all had significant others. I was going to say girlfriends, but I have never had a girlfriend, so that would be inaccurate. But I'm hoping most of our men at some point or another have dated a woman and taken it at least semi-seriously. I think I just heard my husband laugh downstairs. I'm not sure if it's about what I'm saying or something else, but how do you treat a relationship with a woman you want to court when you first start courting them? You approach them respectfully. I mean, you are essentially, when you begin a relationship with one of the Asimir, courting them, not with the intention of dating them, obviously, but with the intention of building a relationship with them. And you can think of them that way, like you're just the same way you would talk to a woman in your life. Maybe you would speak to Frigga the same way you speak to your mother. Hopefully that's with respect. But, you know, but our Asimir they are still women, and all of our men, I would hope, see women as being vital to everything that we do. And so the relationship is important to begin, but also it's the same as talking to a woman in your life. Well, I mean, you know, more or less. They are our Asimir, so not quite the same as talking to your sister. And I can say that with positively. I know I would not speak to my sister the way I speak to the Asimir, but, you know, you build the relationship the same way you would build a relationship with the people in your lives. The only difference is you can't sit face to face and have a back and forth conversation. Mm-hmm. But also you can, sort of. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So that looks like we have got all of our questions out of the way. Thank you guys for your questions. Remember that we will accept VNS questions however you want to send them to us. Just make sure we can get them. So if you want to email something ahead of time, by all means do. Questions between shows, email vns@runestone.org. That producer, Nick, he's so useful. Love it. All right, so let's get into what our episode is about tonight. So what we are going to talk about are the Asimir, building relationships with them, but we kind of bump that into meaning everybody. So what we're going to talk about tonight is building relationships, yes, and then we're going to get into a few of the Asimir is what we're going to talk about, specifically some of them tonight, but what we have to say about building relationships with them applies to the Asimir. So one of the first things that as a Githya core, we decided that we wanted to start with was this. The things that we're going to say to you tonight and to you or experiences, these are things that we've taken what we can from the lore. Some of it is very little. Let's be honest. Some of it's very little. We have taken what we had. We have internalized that information. We have examined it. We have broke it down philosophically to see what we can and how we can relate to and build relationship with these goddesses. So when we say something, it's not going to be us putting them in a box. So when we say we consider this our fertility, goddess, this is who we go to fertility, we're not putting the Astenir or the Astenir in a box where they are the goddess of, okay? Building a personal relationship with these goddesses is important and necessary. Also, your sentence in an obscure book does not make you more pious than somebody who is doing daily offerings, putting in that work, doing that philosophical self-evaluation sometimes to build that relationship and to do good works in the names of these goddesses. So we decided as a Githya core, we're going to throw that out there right from the beginning. We are not going to nitpick if someone can't remember where what part of the lore that came from or anything like that. We're focused more on building a personal relationship of devotion and piety, and not only having a personal relationship of worship and piety, but world and performing in a real world way. So when we're going to be talking about this, we're going to be talking about worship. We're going to be talking about women's energetic work, but we're also going to be talking about practical devotion. Okay. So that's how we're going to kind of break that down just a little bit. All right. And we're going to talk a little bit about the differences. And when I say differences, I don't mean differences, but I mean classifications, right? When we're talking about and I think Nick has some things prepared he can pop up for me. Now, when we're talking about the Astenir, we're talking about Frigg and Freya, and we're also talking about the Maidens of Fenshaler. Okay, he's got that popped up there for you. You can kind of see the classification, how we're grouping them and how we're discussing them. Okay, so these are the Astenir. We also have our Ostvanir, and forgive me if my tongue doesn't work properly, it's Ostvanir. These are the beloved friends, or the Githyas call these the wives and mothers, the beloved. Okay, and we're talking about the wives of our gods, the mothers of our gods. Okay, and then we do have our heavenly wardens. All right, there we go, our Himmelwärter. And these are our feminine wardens that he has listed up here, Astra, Suna, Notes. So when we're talking about them, we'll be talking about them in different classifications, but we did just want to let you know we do have them classified. It's a way to organize them. It's a way to classify them. It shows kind of what they do and who they are, right? Just by putting them into those names and kind of separating them that way. So honestly, it's very easy to track them when you've got those lists down, right? So think about that, We're not trying to shove them into a box. We're trying to understand them by their function, by their position, by the classification. So where do we want to start, ladies? Who do we want to start with? I'm going to leave this up to the Githyas on this call. So I'm going to pick on Githya McNallen. Which one of the beloveds should we talk about first? I'm going to let you pick one. I got you on mute, ma'am. I'm sorry.
There, unmuted. Well, I kind of like the extent of information we pulled together about Sif, so I'm going to recommend that we start with her,
Okay.
wife of Thor, and kind of her multi-roles that she has within the Aesir. So,
all right. Would any of our lovely ladies like to give us kind of a synopsis of who Sif is and kind of where we see her in the lore, stories about hers? Do I have someone to volunteer as tribute for that? Does anybody want to take the lead on that one?
Hey, smile a lot.
All right, I'll take Sif. All right, so what do we know about Sif? Sif is the wife of Thor, okay? We know that she is, let's talk about this. Okay, hold on, we're going to dig a rabbit hole real quick. Hold on. She is one of the beloveds that Loki specifically targets. Let's talk about that, ladies. Rabbit hole 2 seconds in. We should have a bingo card for this. Like, this should be a drinking game every time I go down a rabbit hole. All right, so.
No, no.
So let's talk about that. Sif is one of them that he specifically targets. Okay. Now, when we talk about Loki targeting the Aspinir, we're talking about Sif. We're talking about Freya. And we're talking about Idun. Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. Would any of our ladies like to kind of discuss what we've been discussing as a group about modern society and how that relates to Loki attacking these Aspinir? Any of the ladies like to do that? No? Everybody's like, I don't want to just jump in. Go ahead.
Well, I'll jump in. Well, I mean, one thing with Sif, he, shears her hair off. She's very well known for her beautiful, long, golden hair. It's something very connected to who she is, the qualities she has, how she's connected to the earth. And it's like the growing wheat in the fields. It's kind of like her hair. And so when he targets her, he specifically takes her hair, which is like her femininity, her, fertility, like everything that makes her a woman. He targets her and tries to take that away from her. So I think that is an important part of her story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So we have the story of him specifically, shearing her hair off, and, with hopes that, everybody's going to be devastated, So let's talk about that a little bit. When Loki attacks these Aspinir, he's attacking femininity itself, just like modern society today is attacking femininity. So when we look at Sif being attacked by Loki, being targeted by Loki, what do we see? We're seeing an actual attack on beauty, on feminine beauty. We're seeing that being stolen. And we see that in the modern times now. We see a man with a receding hairline and pigtails demanding that we call him a woman, and not just that we recognize what he wants, but that he's literally taking that word from us. You know what I mean? He's taking that where we have to use cis women. I'm a woman. You can't just take that from me. So we see that being stolen. We see that in the modern day, where there's literally an attack on natural femininity, beauty of femininity. And we see that with Loki attacking Sif. We talked about that kind of as a group, about how we can see that play out. We can see this example of lore being played out in modern time. So yes, that was one as well. When we talk about Loki attacking these goddesses, what is he attacking? He's not just cutting off her hair. I mean, he could be, but look at it a little bit deeper. How can you take that story of your lore and apply it to the modern day? Living Asatru every day, an Asatru life. How can you take that and mold that and give that example to your sisters, your friends, your daughter? You know. So yeah, we are going to be talking about that a little bit as well, you guys. But back to Sif. Back out of the rabbit hole for a minute. Talking about Sif. So Sif being the wife of Thor. Think about that a little bit more than just being a wife, right? You know, we see her in the story where, you know, her hair is sheared off, and because of that, she has the golden hair, and we have Mjolnir, and we have, you know, all of these tools. But let's talk about just the role of Sif. She's the wife of Thor, okay? So I'm going to pick on, ladies, everybody pay attention. I'm going to pick on somebody, okay? I'll ask the question first, and then I'm going to pick on you. What does it mean to be the wife of Thor? What does it mean to be the wife of strength and courage? What does that look like? Can anybody answer that for me? Go ahead, Chip.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, we talk about she is the calm in the home. He comes back after slaying giants and all those things, you know, in a world of chaos, and she brings balance to that. But on the other hand, there is always that potential threat that we hadn't really discussed, that she needs to be courageous herself, knowing that she's staying with a man who is taking large risks to help his folk being the other gods and goddesses. And but she herself has beauty and grace and all these wonderful things that he admires, and that even, of course, Loki admires. He's always going after beautiful women because he can't get them any other way, right? He's jealous of the men. He takes from the women because they don't want him. And so, you know, that gets into some of the deep, darker things about the stories. But yeah, I'm going to end here because I'll let other people bring up other things about Sif.
Now, we also talked about Sif being someone that we could talk to, turn to, look for guidance from when it comes to extended family, right? Mm-hmm. Lauren, could you tell us a little bit about, you know, you brought this up when we were having our panel about what Sif's name means and how we can use that to understand how we can use that to get guidance with our extended families. Because you touch on that just a little bit.
Sure. I believe her name is cognate with like the word sib, with sibling, like it's connected to the extended family. So she's very connected to like keeping Frith within the extended family. She's one you would turn to if you were having some strife, perhaps in your family between extended family. So that's something that we would turn to her for. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. One of the other things that we talked about as well was Sif's role in the harvest, right? We see her long golden locks. We think of the wheat fields and the earth being abundant and things like that. You know, Sif can also, when we think of that, we're looking at the domestic gardening. You know, the domesticating the. You know, it's not just the wheat random. It's hard work that we put in. It is the gardens that we grow. You know, she is very much about the home, providing for the home in that aspect. Providing an abundant and a prosperous home. You know, so when we think about Sif, we think about the domestic garden, the domestic field, the farming, not necessarily the hunter-gatherer out in nature growing wild. We think about bringing that home domestically. So we look to her kind of for that aspect as well. So when we're looking at things that we can do to honor her and to do good deeds for her, right? What are some things that we could do in a practical way to, and when I say practical, I mean just in the mundane world itself. You know, what could we do to honor her? You know, knowing the things that we know about her, about, you know, turning to her for an extended family, sign of beauty and femininity. She's literally the wife of strength and courage. What kind of things could we do for that? What could our women do to show that in the outside world, so to speak, and to demonstrate that to each other? Does anybody want to jump in? Anybody can jump in at any time if you like.
At like the very basest, most obvious answer in the world, it would be take care of yourself. You know, hair in particular has been a sign of beauty throughout the world for as long as forever until more recently. I don't know if my hair is pretty. I think it's pretty. It's nice and long. I do what I can to take care of it because to me, having long, beautiful hair is femininity to me. And if you look out into the world right now and you look out at all those crazy liberal feminists with their weird chopped off hair or their half shaved, half ponytail, purple, green, neon, whatever, that's not beautiful. That's gross. Literally, I think it's gross. I look at those people and I think, what horrible things have gone on in your life that you think that that's what you need to do in order to present yourself in some way to the people around you? Like, you don't care about yourself if you... I truly don't believe these people really care about themselves if that's what they want to present to the people outside of their home. But that's, like, again, the most basic, like, very top level answer is take care of your physical appearance. But I think we could say that for almost all of our goddesses, because while femininity isn't just our outward appearance, it definitely is a part of it. So that's what I got right now.
Yep. Anybody else got something on that? Or something about the practical honoring of Sif? How can we do that in everyday life?
We can do it through our actions, through our weaving of frith in everyday life. Sif is very much the frith weaver, and in our ladies' book study, we're reading the book "Lady with the Mead Cup," who's about the figure of Welteo. Am I saying her name right? Welteo, the wife in the mead hall that brings around the mead horn to all the retinue, to the war band, and weaves frith among the gentlemen there. And Sif is like the lady with the mead cup, like in the Lokasena, the flighting of Loki, when Loki's making a fool of himself, and she brings him the horn of mead, and she's basically like, "Oh, please, take this, like, have a drink, calm down, it's okay." But of course he doesn't. But so she's that figure. So we can emulate her and honor her through our weaving of frith in everyday life and in our religious communities and in our families.
Mm-hmm. And you brought that up with the Githya panels that we have as well about Lokasena, where even when it was uncomfortable, and was probably the last thing she wanted to do, right? Yeah, absolutely. And we also talk about her being a mother. She's also a mother. Oh, speaking of motherhood, hello, children. She's also a mother. What kind of things would the mother, or I'm sorry, like the wife of strength and courage, she's also a mother. What kind of things as a mother could Sif exude and teach? Taking what we know about her, what kind of things could she teach to her children?
I was going to say, go ahead, Anna.
Okay, I'm going to assume as like the wife of strength and courage, her children are, very headstrong. So there's that balancing act, like teaching your children to be balanced. Like if you've got very strong, willful children, that's great. You just need to show them how to cultivate that wildness, how to cultivate that strength to something that's going to benefit them. Because if you don't, you're just going to have your kids like breaking all your stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, as being a woman in the AFA and being a Frith Weaver, Sif is a wife often left alone while her husband is out fighting the giants, right? He's out fighting Jotuns. As a woman of the church, as a devotion to Sif, you could reach out to the women that you know whose husbands are deployed, right? Whose husbands are maybe driving a truck across country and they're gone all of the time. Someone who is constantly, out for work, providing for his family, and she's often having to be left alone to hold the fort. Sif would know what it's like for her husband to be gone. And that's something that we can do in her good name, right? Is reach out to those women that we know have to be without their husbands for periods of time. Because she knows what that's like. What do you guys think about that? Yeah. Something that
maybe others, like single women, perhaps, especially if they have sons, reach out to them and support them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That Frith Weaver can go from just a horn and it can go to phone calls and letters. Remember your sister when you know she's alone. Reminder that she has support, and bring her hope that her husband's coming home or her son is coming home. Right? Yeah. So also one of the things that go ahead, Sheila. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in addition, she, of course, is the daughter-in-law of Odin and Frigg, right? She shares that having the in-law relationship with them, and they are the elders in the family. And so we talked about the need for our people to maintain contact with those who may not have as much, may not even have children at all, and are certainly subject to loneliness, because that happens to all of us. We're not socially adept anymore. We can't get out. So we mentioned the Elderly program that we have in the AFA, and it's really a wonderful thing to get our elders together to be able to chat and reminisce and all those things. But for all of us, remember your own family, and within the AFA, to stay in touch with those who are housebound for whatever reason. Reach out, and a phone call, a card, or anything like that. An email, of course, would work as well.
Wonderful. Ladies, do we have anything to add? Because I know we had talked about we don't want to make this go into 3 o'clock in the morning just on Sif, because this Githia panel could have in particular. So I know we had kind of specific points we wanted to talk about, but is there anything that we want to add about Sif, whether it's ideas for her worship? We already talked about the mundane, but energetic workings, women's energetic work, in forms of devotion and worship that we can do at our altars. Does anybody have any recommendations for how to work with Sif at your altar in regards to offerings or things of that nature? What do you think Sif would like? Curious minds want to know how to start that relationship.
I think she would enjoy something very beautiful, like maybe a beautiful hair comb, a tool of beauty in some fashion, maybe a handmade one, something that she would like that.
Definitely.
I also feel like sorry. Sif is probably very practical. She has to take care of a house that is presided over by one of our biggest hotheads. You know, she has to be able to keep calm under pressure. She has to make sure that the kids learn how to control their tempers, because if they're the children of Thor, they probably have tempers too. You know, and so I think something to keep in mind with Sif is that she is a very calm and very quiet but very commanding woman. She has to be. She has to be in order to keep that house under control. So practical things are probably good for Sif. I think she would probably enjoy a homemade slice of bread. Maybe some cheese too, who knows? I feel like cheese would be good. But practical things. Homey things, you know? Does that make sense?
I like to give wheat in the combining season. Like if I can get out there and get it before it gets put down, steal a little for her. I like to do that, you know, because she's very much, for me, she's very much that goddess of the harvest in providing for the family, you know, in whatever ways that we can in the modern day, whether that's my garden, whether that's the field of wheat, you know, whatever it is that's providing for that domestic family, you know, making them wealthy and abundant. So I like to give her wheat. There has been years when I had to buy it because I didn't get there in time. Not gonna lie. But I think going out there and cutting it for her is significant when I can. So I do like to do that as well. So for those who work the Feminine Sade Mysteries, what kind of energetic workings could we work with her? What kind of things could we do as women in the Well of Sif? What kind of things do our folk need, and what kind of energetic workings could we do as women to benefit the folk in the Well of Sif? Go ahead, Anna.
Calming strife.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Whether it be within ourselves or between each other or just among the folk at large, the calming of strife, the soothing of tempers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe bringing the hot-tempered men together to say, look, we need to work together. You need to set it aside, and we need to build something now. Now is the time to build, and you can fight it out in the back later if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. What do you ladies think? Any other energetic thoughts about altar work or energy work we could do for the folk?
It kind of reminds me of the water work that we have done with our folk. The calming strife. Our women have done individual group rituals where we use our feminine magic to sort of draw women in to help them find us, but also to push out negativity. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that here. If you want to know more, ladies, find us on MeWe. I distracted myself. Sorry, I forgot what I was saying. I know this is going to sound really stupid, but you know how in Victorian times people used to do hair art? They used to like literally take their hair and turn it into things. You can, I know hair, I'm focusing on the hair a lot. It's Sif and hair, it's kind of a common theme, but even just if you're sitting at your altar and you're trying to meditate on Frey, or Frey has been on my mind lately.
Can't imagine.
I know. But if you're trying to work with Sif for something, you can literally, with the hair on your head, you don't even have to take it off. Knots are a thing. Hair is a thing. You can tie knots in your hair and literally turn that into a thing. braids. Braids are a thing. I'm literally thinking of this as I'm saying it, so I know it's not very well flushed out, but even just the act of brushing your hair, like, have you ever heard somebody say that, like, when you're brushing your hair, you can, like, brush things out of it? I don't know. That was the thing I remember hearing when I was growing up once. You could literally talk about brushing the day's negativity off of you by brushing it out of your hair, because your hair is growing out of your head, and it all funnels up into your hair, and you can literally brush it away by brushing your hair. So, like, literally you can use your hair as a tool to work with this. And that's what I got.
That is 100% a thing. The brushing the day out of your hair.
Okay, cool. I knew I had heard of it before. I just couldn't remember for the life of me.
And it's not just yourself. So when you think of Sif and you think of that calming nature, right? Where she needs to calm the storm. She needs to calm the strength. Okay. Do you understand, as a woman, your ability to calm a child or your partner or whoever it is that needs that by playing with their hair? Seriously. You know, I mean, my kids would, do their hygiene, but we always had like this point where we would add oil to their hair. And I'm not talking about like their greasy messes, but you know how you take a shower, you wash all the oils out of your head itches and it gets dry, So to prevent all that from happening, you put a little bit of product in your hair and you make it soft, and you make your scalp soft. But the act of running your fingers through that hair, of massaging the scalp, of taking away the worry, the pain, the stress, the anxiety, that can be done with women's hands. So that is definitely something to consider as well. That is an energetic practice. You're using your calmness, and you're transferring that to the person in front of you that you're working on, So that is something that we can definitely do. Also we have several people in the church that could use some extra prayers for a happy harvest, a safe harvest. We have homesteaders in this church, you guys. They're really building homes from nothing, yards from nothing. They could use the prayers, the work. Those all things that I feel like I would turn to Sif for. All right. And we're going to answer a couple questions here really quick before we get too far. Otherwise, we're going to have 30 questions at the end. All right. So first, we want to say thank you to Austin in Wisconsin, who donated $20 to the Freyshoff Fund. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. And then we do have a question from Robert. Why, though? How does beauty define her? So we talked a little bit about that as for women who have long hair and have worked very, very hard to get their hair to that length. Somebody coming up behind you and cutting it off it is such a personal, it is such a personal attack, you guys. For a woman who prides herself on her hair, of the length of her hair, the health of her hair, who puts that kind of energetic work into herself, it is, you're not going to walk away with those scissors, friend. You know what I mean? Like, if you do walk away, they're going to be protruding from you. It's the ultimate insult, and it's such a violation. I personally would feel violated if somebody came up from behind me, grabbed my hair, and cut my hair. So there's no specific meaning in Asatru that says, you have to grow your hair for whatever reason. I've put a lot of work into growing my hair. And for people who know me, they know if you ever see me with short hair, I am not okay. That's a general rule. And Heather's laughing. She knows this to be true. If I say, hey, I got a haircut scheduled, everybody be like, I want a picture when you get done. just sure, because it's that important to me. When I am struggling, if I start messing with my hair, that is the first sign that we need to intervene. You know what I mean? So for me, that's what it means for me. And the longer my hair, I'm okay if my hair is long. That's how you know I'm all right as a person. All right. And Owl of Omens asks, so the Asinir are goddesses and so are the Ausvinir? Yes. So they're all part of the gods, but the relationships are different? Yes. In the Gylfaginning, I noticed only Frigga's handmaids are mentioned. Technically, they're listed as her handmaids, but the Ausvinir are also mentioned throughout. They're just paired with their husbands, if you notice that. We talk about, Frigg. I mean, other than Freya, she's kind of got her own spot down there, but when they talk about Bragi, they'll talk about Idun. When they talk about Baldur, they talk about Nanna. And that's kind of how we have them classified as well. We've got Frigg and Freya as the Asinir. They're kind of like, I want you to think of the Asinir as, and Wynn Swan talks about this really, really well. The old turtle, the turtle brooches that the women used to wear, the cultural dress. So think of that Frigg and Freya on each side of the woman's chest. And the Asinir are linked between the two. So always think of that, Frigg and Freya. He put that in my mind of, Frigg and Freya being the two main, and the handmaidens are spread across them, so it's a really good visual that I like. But yes, the Ausvinir are mentioned. They are just mentioned in pairing with their husbands. And then, but the other goddesses are brought in through marriage and or birthing of another god. Yes and no. So there's some of them where we don't say they were not originally Aesir or part of that, but the Ausvinir are our wives and mothers. They're our beloved. And then Finn asks, what do you think of males with long hair? I'm a fan, but that's just
Can I say something about that?
What's
There's
that?
nothing wrong with men with long hair as long as they look like men.
As long as
if you are a long-haired male who is questionably male, cut it. Or grow a beard.
Grow a beard.
So what if their hair is better than yours?
Okay, so that's Nick, you're starting a fight. All right? Because I'm going to tell you right now, has anybody seen my youngest son lately?
No.
All right. So my youngest son is about 6 feet tall and he's broad like a building. And he has got the longest, most beautiful head of hair I have ever seen in my life. And it's disgusting. Does he look like a man? Yes, he does. Is it 1970s like shampoo commercial hair? Yes, it is. And he didn't get it from me, and it's not fair, and Nick just started a fight. So now I'm going to have to yell at him when he comes home because Nick brought it up. Just saying.
Sorry, bud. I don't know what to say.
All right. Let's go back into our topic. I don't see any other questions unless I missed one. All right. Do we have anything else to add on Seaf, ladies? Does anybody want to jump in and add anything that I might have forgotten about that we had talked about we wanted to bring up? No? All right. I think we should go into Nanna next. What do you think? Should we go in order? Let's go in order. All right. So, Sarah, can I pick on you for Nanna? You are part of Baldershof district. So would you give us a synopsis, kind of who Nanna is and her story in the lore? Could you give us that?
Nanna is the wife of Balder. She is known for her unconditional and undying love for him. So much so that when he dies, her heart breaks and she dies.
Yes. So when we think about Nana, Sarah, when we think of Nana, what is the first word that pops into your head for Nana?
Love.
Love. Yep. For me, it's devotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So now I'm going to pick on Githia Heather for a minute. Heather, as a wife and a mother, can you explain to me what that feels like? What that kind of devotion of a wife and mother, why that's different than anything else out there? What makes it special, the wife and the mother?
Because you will do anything for your children and your husband. You will not let anybody hurt your children or your husband. If you're like me, I'm Mama Bear, 2.0. And the same with my husband, even though he's not my child. Like, don't mess with my husband and don't mess with my children, and we are great. Mess with them, and I'm not so good.
Mm-hmm. She's not joking. She's not. We are not in any way, shape, or form saying that our men cannot hold their own. They can. Our men folk are strong and great and wonderful, but we're going to let you fight your fight, but they are going to have us afterwards. So what's left of those men, after our men folk handle them, we get the remains, and they're going to wish that they were still fighting you.
The chihuahua comes in.
I will chew your ankle. Chew it like a rabbit chihuahua. I'll 5'3.5" and 100 pounds of me and fight your ankle if you mess with my kids. But the love of a wife and mother, right, is special, and it's not something that, what's the right word I'm trying to say here? It is, Nana literally died of a broken heart. She literally threw herself on the pyre to join her husband. And what does that tell us about her? Not only her love, but her devotion to him. We can love a lot of things and still not be devoted. We could also be devoted to a lot of things and still not love it. Let's be honest. That's real. But it's when both of those things happen is where you have Nana. All right. I'm watching the questions because now they're pouring in. Oh, dear. All right. So it says, I think it's Jove has a question. Sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. Does that mean that she will return after Ragnarok as well? Correct me if I'm wrong to my lore people, but it does not specifically say that she does. It doesn't specifically say that she comes back from hell. It says that Balder and Hoder do, but it does not say that she does. There have been arguments that it says at the end that the gods will be playing chess in the field again, but it does not specifically say that she returns. We talked about this in the Githia panel as well.
Mm-hmm.
We did. This came up. Would anybody like to talk about kind of our discussion that we had about her still remaining? Because we when we talked it out, we're like, if she still remains, what does that mean? Right? Would anybody like to talk about that a little bit? I might call on somebody. So if she doesn't come back, what does that mean? she made that commitment, right?
It was a very selfless thing for her to do.
Mm-hmm.
If she does not come back, it was very selfless.
Yes. Absolutely. Because it doesn't say that she comes back. Balder does. And maybe she does. I'm not going to pretend that I know the will of the gods. I'm not going to say that. I suppose we'll find out when that happens. But the thing is what does that mean? Right? If Balder is known to come back, but Nana isn't, and she does it anyway. She does it anyway. Right? Knowing that she maybe can't follow him back. But she did not want him in that place alone. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, so it points out that they would appear forever separated in the afterlife once he returns. And so we talked about that nature of grief because she felt it so strongly initially, and that must stay with her. And part of our discussion on her was all the people who grieve over their lost relatives, and that is very real in our world. We deal with a lot of people in our own church here who are going through it on a daily basis, and some of the things that we can do to reach out to them, to give comfort, to remind them. Some have this really hard time to imagine that life continues on, that the spirit continues, and they are so hurt by the abandonment of someone that they loved, or that total loss that just pains them. So that is part of her message to us, is to remember to help those who are grieving.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask Sarah this one. So Sarah, with Nana, we also relate a lot of piety for her, devotion and piety.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at that in the practical realm of worship, right? We're talking about things we do in her name, in her honor, right? Acts of devotion. What kind of things can we do to, in the practical world, is just any woman in the AFA? What can any woman in the AFA, what kind of good works could she do for Nana?
Helping other women learn to grow deeper in their devotion, their knowledge of the Aesir. You can help take care of a Hoff, and things along those lines. I think the creation of Baldur's Hoff is an amazing example of what women can do in devotion to Nana. Because wouldn't you say that for a while, the Baldur's Hoff and the work on it was a devotion of love of the women involved, if that makes sense.
100%. And, Anna can speak on that as well. There was a lot of things that went into Baldur's Hoff that we utilized Nana for. So if you at the mural at Baldur's Hoff, okay, you'll actually see that Nana's hand rests on the wolf. And we specifically asked for that. Like, we wanted that. We wanted a show of Nana taming the wolf. Anna, did you want to talk about that a little bit, about kind of where we were going with that?
Sure. The months leading up to, in between acquiring Baldershoff, signing the papers, me and Jason Gallagher taking the tour of Baldershoff, and then leading up to the dedication, there was a lot of strife. There was a lot of negativity, and there was some from the community without. We had to fight for our rezoning. We had to show that we're not bad people. There was a lot of people coming at us, from the community. There was also, at the time, there was a lot of internal tension. There was a lot of just hurt feelings, I want to say, internal strife, a lot of arguments. There were some rifts that will probably never be patched up. All of that kind of made for, I'd like to say, kind of a wolfish, like this wolf we felt was just circling the Hoff itself. By completing that Hoff, by having it dedicated to Balder, we showed with that our devotion, that our piety, that our love is now resting. It's our hand resting on the head of the wolf and holding it down.
Mm-hmm.
We won. We've tamed the wolf.
Mm-hmm. We also did have a saying that we were going to drag you into the golden age, kicking and screaming if necessary.
We did.
We did.
And we did.
But we did. We did it. We absolutely did.
It's a relevant point, but it's still funny that you measured everything in units of Anna.
We just got another donation. Gilbert in Georgia donated $150 to Phrase Hoff. Thank you, Gilbert, so much. Appreciate that. I'm going to give this one to Miss Sarah. Are you ready? People always say women have better intuition. Do you think this is true? And could there be a spiritual aspect to this too?
Yes, I believe it's true. Because women listen better. I'm joking. I am joking.
No, you're not.
I do believe it's true. I think women hear the things that aren't said. I think in a lot of ways they are better observers, so they hear the kind of things that aren't said. And what was the second part?
Do you think that could there be a spiritual aspect to this?
Oh, I think there definitely is. For me, there's a lot of times where I feel that something's off, or even something's really good, and I'll reach out to a person, and I'm usually pretty spot on with something. And I know that is something that Githia Heather does a lot of. She is amazing at that. And I'm sure she'd like to share that.
Yeah, I think she should, especially when she calls me and says, I smell roses and cigarettes. What's wrong?
In all honesty, I text Katie first. I was like, do you like roses? And she was like, not really. I was like, okay, let me text Brandy. So I don't know. I'm usually at work, so it's like no special time when it decides to like hit me and I have to stop doing what I'm doing and like text everybody like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? It's you. But yeah, one day I was getting ready for work and I just kept smelling cigarettes. And then it was like roses. And I was like, Brandy, what the heck is going on? It's not Katie. I thought it was Katie. And she was like, you know what my perfume is? And I was like, no. And she goes, roses. And I was like, and you smoke. How did I not figure this out? But it's been many things. Like, I've also reached out to Katie and Swan when I have feelings about things that like do happen that I can't have any control over, and then it freaks me out for forever because I want to fix it, and a lot of times there is no fix. I think I talked to Katie, Brandy, and Swan when I had remember when I called freaking out, a whole bunch of people were going to leave. And y'all were like, just chill because there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's just, I've been that way my whole life. I always tell people never cut your kids off. My mom and my grandma never cut that off or acted like that was strange when I did things like that. I never did it with my girls, and my girls do the same thing. Like my daughter was 3 when she told us what kind of car we were going to buy. And then the next year we bought that car. So I just think it's a big thing because once you cut stuff like that off or stop it, it's really hard to get it going again. You can slow it down, but if you stop it, it is a lot of work to get it going again. And I always tell people, like, that feeling you get when you're in the store and you're like, you don't want to walk towards that person and you don't know why, that's your intuition, you know? Stay away from that person for whatever reason. It's yourself protecting yourself, you know? But that's what I've always, you know, like taught my girls. That's how I taught my girls to start noticing what it is. I was like, when you're around somebody and it makes you feel that, oh my gosh, I need to get away from that person. And that just built it stronger and stronger for them. I mean, my girls were really little and they would tell me, I don't want to be here. These people make me feel different. And I'm like, let's go, you know? So I think, yes, I think it's a lot spiritual because I think some of the things that we feel or observe or whatever might be coming from other places. I mean, because there's some things that just can't be explained with watching somebody or, you know, listening to somebody. So, like I said, if you ever are interested in pushing that further, you just have to remember to keep yourself open, always open, and don't like act like, don't think you're crazy. You know, like I've seen friends of mine would tell me I was crazy, and I'm like, I'm not crazy. I know it's going to happen, you know, and my parents never did that to me either. So like, just trust it. I mean, worst case scenario, what you believe is going to happen doesn't, right? I mean, that's the worst thing. So,
So I have a question.
That's my thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Is it easier being also true than, obviously you were Christian before, and I would think that Christianity tends to hold that down. Did you have that previously? And obviously we have no issue with it. We would encourage people to develop this second sight, the intuition and all that.
I was not raised, my grandparents and my mother were not any kind of religious. So the only time I explored religion is when I married Daniel.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. So,
well, it saved you.
So every time Daniel would try something, I've always been that person. And if he's trying it, I'm trying it. We're going to do it together. So we tried, you know, Jehovah Witness, and then that's what led us to Asatru, you know, so.
Wow.
Yeah. They kept telling Daniel that the soul is in the blood. So he tracked his bloodline, and he was like, well, my bloodline is this, so I need to see what they did. And that's when we started looking into Asatru.
It's a great story. Yeah, love it.
So I agree, Sheila. So I believe that it is harder to, let me back that up 2 steps. One of the most common questions I get is specifically from women is about divination. Okay. One of the things I have always told women from the very, very beginning, and if you ever ask to work with me, I will put you through the most annoying things in the entire world to prepare you for real divination, right? Because real divination relies on tuned intuition. When you throw runes, the runes have power and meaning, but without actual tuned in intuition, you can miss things. If you read cards, the cards aren't the power. If you do 9 by 9 by 9, the numbers are not the power, right? If you throw Ogham, the Ogham is not the power. It represents the power. So, you know, when people have asked to mentor with me in some of these things, I start them out with things that they're just like, why am I doing this? Because you need to understand what it means when you see it. How does this affect you? What does this make you think of? Because you are the one that's interpreting the message. And sometimes you're not even interpreting the message, you're relaying them. You're interpreting it, you're relaying it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to trust your instinct. You have to trust your intuition. That takes practice. Is it an innate born talent? 100% absolutely. But just like a muscle, if you don't use it, it weakens. Mm-hmm. Right? So yes. Okay, we are not going to jump. I just dug a big hole. We're not going to jump down that one. Somebody set a snare. All right.
Can I share my story about how my friendship with Heather started?
Absolutely.
It fits into the intuition. I had gone to like a pagan fest here, and I was looking through the booths, and there was this really cool green spiral made out of crystal that I really wanted because I like spirals, I like green. But right next to it was this other purple heart thing. There was an owl carved into it, and it felt like it was. I had this instant thought that Heather would really like this, and I had not. Besides saying hi, you know, the basic niceties, I had certainly never met Heather in person. I had never talked in depth to her, so I thought, why? It just seemed odd, but I went with it. And I sent it in the mail to her. And so when she got it, she called me and she asked me kind of why I bought it. And she's like, I have something to show you. And she has a tattoo that matches the owl, the carving of the owl. And I had no idea she had that. And it was just kind of a cool thing that came to me that matched up with her and her owl, and that's how we started talking. And I have no idea why. Yeah.
I remember that because she called me afterwards. She's like, she's gifted. Heather's like, she's got it.
Yeah, because the little stone is shaped almost like South Carolina too.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even notice that. Okay. That's awesome.
Katie, do you have anything to add on that? I know that this is an area that you work with. Do you have anything to add on that, on the intuition?
Yeah, just back to the initial question when he was asking if it is inherently female, and I think one of the things that we talk about in the NFA all the time is that as women, we are inherently magical. And what do we mean by that? It means we literally use our very bodies to create life. And what is more magical than that? You know what I mean? So we say it's in our blood, and being frithful is a type of, I consider frith to be a sort of feminine magic, because if a woman is in tune with the energy around her, with her intuition, you can literally manipulate the energies around you. And I don't mean like turning people's hair blue or anything like that, or sending like chakra, like not chakras, whatever, you know, the kung fu movies where they're all like, blah, and then wind pushes their enemy 500 yards away or whatever. I'm not talking about that kind of manipulating energy. I mean, and we talked about this before, you can walk into a room with two men who are clearly hostile to each other, and a woman can, if she knows what she's doing, walk up to those men and with a hand on the shoulder, just a gentle touch, can manage to, if not calm the men down, de-escalate the situation a great deal. And it's not just a woman walked into the room, although sometimes that's enough. It's the fact that we literally are inherently capable of manipulating situations like that. We've seen women who use that magic, if you will, in a negative way. They walk into a room and they manipulate things into a negative situation. But it's our intuition is part of all of that, of everything that women are, that helps them to learn how to control the frith in a room. So I do believe it is inherently feminine, and also by those same standards inherently a spiritual thing, because you have to, yeah, that's all. I lost my thought in the middle of it, as per usual.
Before we move off of Nana, there's a couple questions stacked. I want to get to those as well. Let's see. So Owl of Omen. So Sheila and Lauren, I'm going to give this one to you two.
Mm-hmm.
What is the reciprocity between the feminine and the masculine and vice versa that we should attempt to achieve not only in our family life, but also in our relationship with the gods and goddesses? What is that reciprocal relationship between the feminine and the masculine, and how do we duplicate that with the gods?
Do you want to start, Lauren?
You can go ahead, but sure. Well, I mean, in our relationship with the gods and goddesses, like for me, I'm not sure if this would fit the question. I'm not. I've always considered myself a Odin Scythia. Odin was the first of the Aesir that I started following, and I feel like he called me to this path. But I've been balancing it out in my life, you know, with following all the goddesses as well. So I think it's important for me. So if you perhaps only follow, you know, the male holy powers, perhaps you could, you know, balance it out by trying to find some qualities of our female holy powers that interest you, that could serve you, that could answer some of your prayers, things that you're interested in. So it's just important to find a good balance with those things. Hope that makes sense.
It does. Go ahead, Sheila.
Yeah. Sometimes when we do bloat, and it is to one of the Aus, one of the men, oftentimes Odin, but it could be Freyr or Thor, any of them. I think we've been very, very effective in also doing a bloat to typically Frigg or Freya, but sometimes other goddesses as well. And because the nature of those bloats are so different than each other, and there is a very different feeling to a bloat that is to one of our goddesses compared to one of the gods. So I think that needs to be encouraged, and people, I typically, you know, we're at Odinshöf. I think of Odin all the time, but I very much connect to Frigg, and I could have said that in that very first question we had. I connect with Frigg and always have, as kind of she who welcomes everyone home, and home for us is Odinshöf. And so I see myself with my husband as Odin, Frigg, Steve, Sheila kind of thing. But I think the balance is beautiful and needs to be encouraged. wherever you can do that. And it's often done at all of our hofs. There's oftentimes another bloat that is done in addition to the main bloat. Sometimes to have one to one of our goddesses is a really nice balance for everybody to experience.
Thank you, ma'am.
I've grown closer to Freya a lot because I feel close to Odin, because she has a lot of qualities that are a good counterpart to Odin too. Frigg, of course, but Freya in some other ways, which are very interesting. Yeah.
So I kind of have something to add about just the basic relationship between the masculine and the feminine, man and woman, and how that works in religiosity. When we look at the feminine and the masculine and the reciprocal give and take of that, one of the things that I just wanted to point out with that, so if you've ever seen me do a dual bloat with a Gothi, I have the thought process that men give, women receive in a spiritual capacity. So when it's just a Githia or it's just a Gothi, of course they have to do both. But when I do dual bloats, I prefer to receive the gifts of the folk, right? And then the Gothi in turn gives them to the gods.
That's true.
I receive the gifts of the gods. The Gothi in turn gives it to the folk. Now, is that like some AFA super secret doctrine or thing like that? No, that's Brandyism. But I like to have that represented when I personally do like a dual bloat. I will receive the Gothi would give. You know, I like to have that representation. I also like to point out the spiritual feminine identity. There is a spiritual feminine identity. There is also a masculine spiritual identity. There is spiritual women duty. There's masculine spiritual duties, right? And we see that in our, our gender roles, not only here in the mundane world, but spiritually as well. I like that, one of the traditions that we have at Baldershof is we actually separate the men and the women before bloat. And again, this is a tradition at Baldershof. This is not something that you can expect at every single AFA event. This is not that. But I like to play on that spiritual identity of a woman gathered together, doing their super secret girl stuff before bloat, and the men doing their super secret boy stuff before bloat. And we actually have a ritual that we do before bloat at Baldershof where we separate the men and the women. The women do their women's stuff, the men do their men's stuff downstairs, and for bloat and worship of the gods, we come together as a folk, masculine and feminine in unity, worshiping the gods. And we actually symbolize that with a dagger. We don't know what the boys do downstairs with that knife. I don't know if we want to, because, as a mother with boys with knives, sometimes you just don't want to ask, right? But there are men's mysteries that happen with this dagger downstairs. There are feminine mysteries that happen upstairs with the horn. When the men come upstairs, they actually present the dagger to the women, to a representative. There'll be a one man and one woman. He'll hand the dagger to her, and he says, the men give you our protection. And we actually take that dagger from the men, we wrap it in a white cloth and set it on the harrow, and we say, the women give you our peace. I really love to represent that balance of the separation of masculine and feminine, but united in worship. So that's something that's important to me, and I'd like to take the opportunity to show that and demonstrate that whenever I can. But as far as what it is with our relationships to the gods and goddesses, that's exactly what it is as a relationship. If you remember, when we talk about relationships, we're not just talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about relationships with your parents, relationships with your family, relationships with your kids, relationships with your best friend, relationships with your coworkers, relationships with the gods. You build that relationship just like you would any other, Out of the rabbit hole, next question, please. All right. Next question is Owl of Omens asked. So he asked, Var is the goddess of intuition and psychic inclinations. Yes. So be careful with the Var, or the Var and the Vower. So Svan taught me a really, really nice rhymey thing because he knows I work that way, where Var sees far and Vower takes vows. So that should help you guys. Svan is a genius. Thank you for that, Sarah. But that helps keep them separated, and it helps with the enunciation of the word. Something that I struggle with. Yeah, Heather's shaking her head. Me too, girl. Me too. All right. And also we have a question. That's a really, really, really big rabbit hole. So let's finish up Nana. Okay. All right. So when we talked about the practical, we left off. Okay. Give me a thumbs up. We left off on the practical of Nana, right? Practical worship of Nana. Mm-hmm. So, Sarah talked, things that we can do, in her good name, right? We can help the spiritual education and the piety of our women, right? We can love and be devoted. We can help. And this is not me as a Githia. This is not Heather as a Githia. This is not Sarah as a Githia student. This is you and even our menfolk as a normal man or woman in the AFA. But specifically our women. They can help educate and help women build their spirituality and their piety and encourage that. That is something that would be in the realm of Nana. Unconditional love and devotion. Tending a Hoff could be done in the good name of Nana. So all of those things that revolve around piety, duty, selflessness, acts of devotion, those are all things that in the mundane world, those acts can be done with her. I'm doing this for her. This is what I'm going to do today as an act of devotion. I'm doing this because Nana inspired that. And tell people that. Take the opportunity to say, I learned this from Asatru. I learned this from the Lord. Look how practical and great this is. Bring your folk home to that. The more you can explain the importance here and now of the Aesir and the Asinir and of the religion, the more you're going to help people come home, and the more you're going to be fulfilled, and the more we're going to grow. Okay? Out of the rabbit hole, on to the next question. This is a really big question. So we're going to kick it off. I'm going to start with Katie on this one. What do you think of things that are used for divination like tarot cards? So Katie, start us off, and then we're going to round table this, ladies. So just kind of think of something. Katie, just one. Love.
I'll give you a second then. This one is one of those things. I think I talked about it briefly on last week's episode when I was in Vermont, and still scatterbrained as usual. Brainy mentioned something earlier on this chat that I thought was relevant, and it was that it's not the card, it's the woman reading the card. It's the intuition that exists within the woman that's doing the divination, or not doing the divination, but I know personally I'm not a big fan of tarot cards. I don't think tarot cards are very Asatru, but I think that you can take just about anything that exists in the world outside of Asatru and make it Asatru if you want to. I'm sure there are some things that are harder to translate, but we absolutely do practice divination. We talked about that earlier. I do osteomancy, bone throwing. I have used tarot cards in the past. I don't find they resonate with me personally very well. I just don't connect to it, and I don't know. It doesn't feel very authentic, which isn't really necessarily a thing.
And let's go over to Sarah. What do you think, ma'am?
I don't, as far as tarot cards, I don't use them. I've never felt connected to them. I do tend to use the Elder Futhark runes by different pulls, reading them. I also do like wax readings where you drip wax into water and read it, or flame, reading the flame. But those two, it's too easy to manipulate what you see, because you can make yourself see what you want to, and not, to me, that's not a true kind of reading. I don't know how else to explain that, but does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do.
Miss Heather, other than raw intuition, is there anything that you use? You're muted.
You're muted.
We can't hear you.
Okay, I said I tried divination rods. They weren't my thing. My oldest daughter does tarot. I've just never had a pull towards tarot. I don't know if you call it. It's not something you can buy, but this might be what you're talking about. But I find things like right now, I have a whole mason jar this week of bird feathers that I find in the most random places, like that they should never be there. Depending on what I'm supposed to be doing or seeing or learning, I get different things. Like all of a sudden it switched from bird feathers to pennies. I find pennies like it's going out of style. So I just kind of study the things that I find around me. The runes, of course, I use the runes. But I did ostomancy. That was good. When Katie did the class on that, I did that. I don't do it regularly. I'd probably be a lot better if I did it on a regular basis. But if I have something like I really want to know, I'll just ask Katie. So she's going to have to tell me to start doing it myself. That's the just honest answer. But I don't really use a lot of things. I know a lot of people do. I know that it works for them, but me personally, it's more just like what falls in my environment, or like I said, whatever lesson or thing I need to be learning or whatever, I just get focused. When it's an abundance of one thing, I know that maybe pay a little more attention to what's going on with this, dig deeper, meditate on it, see what happens, kind of thing. I guess I'm not much help.
That was a lot of help, actually, because that's actually a thing. The finding of things and trying to figure out why. I mean, it's catching your attention, right? All right. Sheila, do you have any experience or anything that you work with? Sheila's also one that always just seems to know things, especially with people.
Okay, the intuition, I guess. I have never done tarot myself. I've never wanted to learn it because I feel it would take, too much time, and I don't have time for that. However, I've had readings, and so has my husband, by a lady who seemed very, very gifted in it. And it just kind of blew us away. Ours were so different, but so accurate. Another thing is, so I don't do it and I would not do it as part of Alstru. I use runes like everybody else. But I also am always curious about people's birth dates due to their personalities. And oftentimes I can pinpoint somebody who's born under the sign of Cancer. They just kind of come through to me. That's an intuition thing too, in a way, kind of reading that. And so, but again, I'm not, a lot of people are way into astrology on, doing natal charts and the whole thing, which of course now you can get online, made in about 90 seconds, maybe even less. If you've got your birth date and time. But anyway, yeah, if it's not valid into our religion, I don't do it, but I do see it's an indicator for something. So I will go that far with it.
So Nick is popping up an image right here. I want you all to let this go into your mind, because as soon as the other Githias are done, I'm going to look like this. So everybody remember that. Githia Lauren.
I love that meme. Tarot cards. Well, I mean, back in my Wicca days, like 20, 25 years ago, whatever, like 30 years ago, 40, I don't know, not that far back. I would be a child, but no, I did some tarot readings, some like scrying, some things like that. These days I work primarily with the Elder Futhark runes. Like the first Asatru book that I read was Freya Asquin's Northern Mysteries and Magic, like a long time ago. I ended up doing like a distance rune learning course with her, like maybe more than 20 years ago or so. Yeah, so I just prefer the runes. But I mean, tarot cards, can bring something if you have the intuition with them. So, yeah.
What about you, Githia Anna?
I've had my tarot cards read once. It was pretty accurate. It was in 2020 when there was a whole lot of stuff going on for me, a whole lot of stuff going on just all over the place, but they were pretty accurate. That being said, I don't work with them. I know you can go into any bookstore or anything and see like a whole wall of tarot card decks, from your traditional ones to the Britney Spears deck. I forget which one, but one of them is the one where she's shaving her head, and I'm like, okay, that's probably not the best thing for a spiritual connection to anyone. Is this poor woman just losing her mind on national television like she did? I work with the runes. I work with both the Elder Futhark and the Armanen, and those are what I feel connected to. I've never really felt connected with anything else. Although the behavior of toddlers can sometimes be kind of, well, there's an old wives' tale where if your toddler is kind of doing the downward facing dog and looking in between their legs, it means they're looking for their sibling and you are pregnant. Irene was doing that a lot last year in July.
Proof.
And I'm not saying there's anything to it, but I'm not saying there's nothing to like the behavior of toddlers, because I think children don't know that they're not supposed to see beyond the veil like that. No one's told them yet that that's not possible.
Can I jump ahead to a question that we're going to have in a minute?
Yes.
Sorry. I saw our California member Monk talking about using the pendulum, and he asks if anybody does use it. I have used the pendulum quite a bit. I don't tend to use it for divination anymore. I use it more as like a concentration tool or a meditation. Just if I'm trying to refocus my energy so I can use it for other things. The pendulum is a really good tool because you use your energy. You can use your energy to make it go back and forth or in circles or whatever, and kind of tune yourself in, if that makes sense. So I don't really like to use it for divination, but I do like to use it for just kind of tuning my energy in, I guess.
Mhm.
Also tea leaves, but I don't like those so much anymore.
All right.
Sorry.
You're good. Nick, can you put that meme up one more time? Because here we go. All right. Here we go. And I promise there's no aliens. So divination is something that's very near and dear to me. For those of you that have worked with me or mentored with me, you know that I'm very big on numbers, right? I have used tarot cards. They're okay, but to be 100% honest, the imagery messes with me. The imagery, it's almost like it messes with the signal. You know what I mean? Because first of all, I can be a squirrel sometimes. So if I'm trying to get in the zone and I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. No, rabbit hole, right? So I work better with numbers, which is why I like cartomancy and 9x9x9 the most, right? Like basic numerology, 9x9 or cartomancy, because it focuses on the numbers. Now, when we do things, anything intuition related, right? You have your general basic meaning of what this is supposed to represent. But remember how I've been, like I said right in the beginning, you have to learn and gain a personal understanding of something, right? So when I do readings or I do divination or I'm doing something along that line, whether it's for myself, whether it is asked of me, or it's part of a yearly routine, I use my personal understanding more than I'm going to use a book. Okay. So I'm not the one that's going to take one of the 15 cartomancy books, open it up, read the cartomancy and look at the card and say, this means this. I don't do that. Every number has a meaning. Every card has a meaning. I am a lunatic and you can show me the different queen cards and I can explain to you the different characteristics of femininity based on what that card looks like, based on which one of them has a weapon. The only one that has a weapon, by the way, is the Queen of Spades. And what their flowers look like down to the curls of their hair, right? Like that's the understanding that I've gotten. Also the same thing with numerology. I say this to say this. Everything is about a personal understanding and a personal reflection, right? You can quote it all you want. Somebody can grab a book on cartomancy and say, yeah, these cards mean this. Yeah, but do they? Or is your understanding going to trump, Lady Shiva's definition, right? Anna Cortez's definition. It's all about your personal understanding. I do believe that there is spiritual understanding that you will receive when you're ready, that you receive as you prepare, that you receive as you go through your life. And I think intuition works the same. It gets better. It gets stronger. Your understanding of signs, of omens, of, numbers, of these things, they will evolve with you as you age. This is part of the whole theory that age is not an illness. Aging and getting old is not an illness. It is an evolution, right? Same thing. So I use cartomancy myself. Nothing against tarot. I do also use the runes, but runes I use for strictly as true spiritual practice, where when I'm working with my intuition, I'll use the stuff I'm most comfortable with, which would be numerology, cartomancy. So, yes. That wasn't so bad. I caught myself before we took a left. Yes. But yeah, it's my jam. I like it a lot. All right. So that brings us over to our next oust veneer. And that would be, who are we on? We just did Nana. So that would bring us to Scotty. Is that right?
Yep.
Counting them off. But we're going to talk about two here. We're going to talk about Yarth and Scotty, okay? Because we've got two aspects there with Njordr. We could have done that with Thor as well, but let's do it here. So let's first talk about Scotty. Would anybody like to give us a synopsis of Scotty's story? Would anybody like to volunteer as tribute? I kind of like the way Lauren tells it. Lauren, would you mind telling the story?
Well, sure. Well, Scotty lives in Jotunheim. Well, she did live in Jotunheim with her father, Thiazi the giant, and basically Thiazi gets in a little bit of a pickle with the Aesir, where the Aesir, it's a story where he steals Idun, and then they end up killing him, and so Scotty marches to Asgard. And she's ready to kind of go to war with them, but when she gets there, they see something in her, and she ends up joining the Aesir, and becoming a part of them. And she chooses her husband, Njord. She ends up with Njord, but she thinks she's going to end up with Balder because she picks by the beauty of the feet that she sees. But she kind of looks up and it's like, oh, it's Njord, which he's wonderful, but he's not Balder. But so that's how she gets her husband in the Aesir. And also a funny thing about her is she kind of dares the gods to make her laugh, which is interesting. And Loki ends up making her laugh by some interesting activity with the goat, which is not very nice. But anyway, but she does laugh, and she does join them, and she becomes a really an important part of the Aesir. And she's in a lot of stories, so she's very important. She ends up affixing the snake over Loki's head when they finally are sick of his his actions. They chain him to the rock and and she has the snake over his head. She has the last laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she has the last laugh. Yes,
she has the last laugh. He was taunting her at the feast in Lokasenna. He was taunting her about how he was involved in killing her father and everything, and she's like, you better watch it. You're gonna end up, the gods are gonna tie you to a rock. And anyway, she added the snake. She had her own special touch.
Absolutely. They tied him down and they had him all secure and they bound Loki. And she's like, what can make this party even better? A snake. It's got to be Scotty. Scotty just took it a step further. We talked about Scotty a lot on our panel, you guys. We laughed, we cried, we were confused. We found the light, I should say the snake. We got there, and all the different aspects and all the different nuances that come into this, right? But one of the things that we did point out in the story of Scott was that, she shows up at the gates of the gods, ready for a fight. Do you really think she thought she had a chance? Think about this logically. And as she came through those gates, and as her relationship with the Aesir grew, through the stories, through her marriage to Njordr, through Lokasenna and into binding Loki, we see someone vain, young, and impetuous, right? Mm-hmm. And in the end, we see someone powerful, courageous, and going, what can make this even better? Snake. Out of, working with the gods. Mm-hmm. God's got you bound. How about we add a snake? Just for good measure. Now think of yourselves when you first came to Asatru, A lot of us started doing this in, we weren't all fortunate that we grew up in this, right? That's a blessing for our children, right? But for a lot of us, when we first started, I mean, I personally look back 20 some years ago and I'm embarrassed of myself. I was impetuous. I was foolish. I was vain. I had moments where I look at myself now and I'm like, oh, what were you thinking? I too went through that phase where I don't kneel before my gods. I stand proud with my gods. It's impetuous. Right? Thought I knew everything. And as I've grown with my relationship with the Aesir, I realize more. I don't know anything. And I'm still learning every single day. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Skadi. So who would like to start us off with her? Do we have any volunteers who would kind of like to talk about things that we picked out about her, things that we found could warn us or inspire us? All right.
So I know something that we focused on with Skadi was the fact that she was very loyal to her father. And despite the fact that her father was not a friend of the gods and she knew that she was probably going to certain death, she kamikazed the heck out of that. She went in there to do as much harm as she could do and not walk out. And in the end, she was willing to, despite her less than maybe thought out plan, to take a step back and think and use her brain and make the better choice. The one that ended up with her as one of our wives and one of our yeah, I lost my words. I'm sorry.
No, you're
I had a whole thought there, and I'm gonna end with like 2/3 of it out.
Yeah, you're good. Any of the other Githias have anything you want to add about Skadi?
Okay, well, I'll add a few things. She's young, she's impetuous, she's got that courage that comes with youth. And with that, in her desire to find the husband that has the most beautiful feet, of all the things that really shouldn't really matter, that is what mattered. And it's the idea of making silly choices when we're young, as you were just saying, going back to that, when we're young and the things we learn later on. And she does exemplify that. Ended up in a relationship that was not perfect for either of them, but somehow they made do. You never hear that they got divorced. They kind of traded off places or whatever. They made it work. And staying with a relationship, staying with a bad decision, one could say, and making the best of it is something she did with her marriage to Niordr.
I think we also learned too that sometimes we recognize that women can be a little stubborn sometimes, right? Like, we get mad and we want to fight that fight. But I think we can learn from Skadi too that sometimes it's okay to acknowledge that you're not going to win the fight. Sometimes it is in your best interest and probably the best interest of everybody else if you just admit, not this time. Choose your battles wisely. Sometimes you gotta take the loss, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not talking about like petty things like having a squabble with your husband about something, and you're not gonna back down because you're the wife, and he's not gonna back down because he's the husband. Those kinds of things are silly. I mean, they're not. They can be very real when you're in the middle of them with your spouse, but that's not the kind of loss I think that we're thinking of. I think we're thinking bigger than just the squabbles you have with your husband when you have them. But it's important to remember that it's acceptable on occasion for the greater good to take the loss.
Mhm. One of the things that we can see in her story is keeping her dignity, right? And not just keeping her dignity, because this speaks to the Aesir as well. When she went up there, not only did she maintain her dignity, the Aesir allowed her to keep her dignity. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
That's a big deal when you think about it. They could have crushed her like a bug, right?
Mhm.
There's how many of them? This whole tribe of people, one Scotty. So it speaks to a mutual respect, but it speaks to dignity itself. You know, maintain your dignity. Also know when to allow others to keep their dignity. You don't have to beat someone into the ground to prove you're right. You don't have to strip them of dignity to win the battle. You know, I think that's significant as well. You know,
I'm going to add one more thing and then I'll stop, I swear. But I think something else that we see with Skadi is, and we see it in her relationship, we see the opposite of her in Sigyn's relationship with Loki, right? And we talked about this on our call. You are who you marry, kind of. She didn't necessarily mean to marry Njord. She got him because she thought his feet were pretty, which, you know, if that's the metric you want to use, whatever. But her and Njord managed to create a relationship that worked for them, even if it wasn't conventional, right? They gave each other the freedom to be who they were going to be, to exist in a way that they needed to exist in order to do so in a good way, right? But then you see Loki and his wife, and we kind of equated it to almost like an abusive relationship. Did she stay and hold that bowl over his head because she genuinely loved him so much she wanted to prevent him from as much pain as possible? Or did she stay because she married him and she kind of had to deal with the fact that she chose him and probably in some kind of weird way didn't know how to get out? How do you get away from that once you've made that choice? Because they would have taken oaths seriously, and while maybe her husband didn't, she certainly seems to have done so since she continued to hold that bowl, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So just, you know, when we see Scotty's story, a lot of the times people will focus on, you know, oh, she was going to war against the gods. There's so much more to the story, though, when you look beyond it. And take a look and see what that means. You know, the Aesir accepted her in time. You know, she built a relationship with them. You know, she proved her loyalty to them as the time went on. There's something to that. And again, the whole keeping of the dignity, allowing to keep the dignity. The loyalty to her father to face an uncertain battle where really, I mean, that was foolish, right? And to do it without fear, even though knowing. Facing those battles regardless sometimes, but also knowing when to back down. So this is something, as you know, we talked about with the Githia panel, we talked about as well. You know, what can our women take from that? And what some of the things we came up with was knowing when the battle's worth it and knowing when it's not. You know, and also we talked about, you know, in the modern day, women still have the power to cause chaos, right? So Heather, in the sagas, who instigated a lot of problems? Which of the genders seem to instigate often?
The men.
The women.
The women.
Yep. You know, you look at that, and I'm going to turn to you on this one, Heather, because you're good at this. So when women get petty, or they fight needless battles, or they have all of these things going on behind the scenes, what happens?
Everything starts to like fall apart. What happens between two people, even if you think it's staying between two people, it isn't. People can see, people will ask questions. Where did this person go? Why isn't this person here anymore? What happened? What happened? What happened? And sometimes it's just life, you know, but everybody is looking for the gossip, I guess, to say. So I feel like if there is something, like Sarah can ask, I'm that person. I mean, Sarah can say, I'm that person. I will call you if I haven't heard from you in a month and say, did I make you mad? I didn't mean to. And she'll be like, what are you talking about? Just checking. But I think it's best to go to that person. I mean, even if they don't, when you go to them face to face, work it out with you, at least that burden's off of you now. And you can just kind of, what I call is, when I talk to people, I say, let's fix it now, or let's not worry about it anymore, you know? And I think that's the only way you can be, or you'll drive yourself crazy worrying. And I learned that in very old age. I used to let everything eat me alive. So I think if we put it, especially for the younger ladies, if you put that in motion now, it will save you a lot of stress and worry and, you know, things like that. Because life is hard, and sometimes just talking to the person, you find out, hey, their life is just hard too. You know, it's not a problem. And then if it is a problem, then you work it out, and usually it wasn't really a big problem, you know, so.
And I'm going to turn this next portion of this over to Sarah, because I have seen Sarah work this magic on countless occasions. So Sarah, you know, we just talked about how women can get things going sideways, right? Especially when they are bound, determined to do it no matter what. Mm-hmm. Now talk to me about the opposite of that, where we have a woman creating order rather than chaos. Can you tell me the benefits of a woman specifically taking a role in that?
I think women also can bring the calm to a situation. They can ease a troubled mind. They can, along with the intuition, they can sense problems that are wrong, and just their mere presence and how they hold themselves, how they choose to actually listen to someone, can bring calm to a situation and turn the situation around. There are times where a lot of people have anxiety, and I can sit in silence with them until they feel the calm again, and they can go about their stuff. There used to be a man at the Hoff who, he was always very anxious around people, especially a lot of people. And when things didn't go the way he thought they could, he would get very anxious, very upset, very fidgety. And he would come and stand next to me. He said, just, there's something calming about me. And I think it's just stuff and have the ability to actually listen, to sense not only when they're partners or their friends, or, you know, just bring that calm and that patience with people and change the situation around.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that, ma'am. So do any of the Githyas, or do you guys have anything that you guys would like us to add for the folk on Scotty? I know our conversation we had, we spent a lot of time on that. So there's some stuff that we got a little, we almost had a Scotty party with the snake and all of the different meanings and stuff. Go ahead, Anna.
I think one thing we walked away from there's a time to be pretty and there's a time to be petty.
Yes. Say it again for the people in the back, Anna.
There's a time to know, like, how, like, to not take it too far. And then there are those times where absolutely you need to take it there. What may look as going too far, you know, putting that snake over Loki. Did they have to? No. Did they need to? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Scotty teaches us when to be pretty and when to be petty, right? When to take it, that next step. And when to back it off a notch. Absolutely. All right. So, okay. So we got a couple questions here that producer Nick wants us to get to. All right. And then we're going to move on to the next one. I know it's getting late, guys. Bear with me. Bear with me. All right. So got a few questions here. Do you have holidays or celebrations? Yes, we do. We absolutely do. You're going to want to check on our website, runestone.org. Producer Nick's got that up there. You can also check that out. We got some descriptions of the holidays. Also check calendars for when the holidays are going to be celebrated near you. There might be a local event. There's always going to be a HOF event on the third Saturday of the month. So yes, every month there is a celebration, and there is also numerous days of remembrances that you can also check out on the website to honor our As True Heroes. If I start going into those, we're never going to leave, sir. So please check out the website for more information. Otherwise, we'll be here until next Wednesday. That's also a topic the Githyas like to talk about. All right. And then Finn asks, what do you think of a Ouija board? Okay, so I'm going to give you my own personal here. I've seen way too many horror movies. No, thanks. I'm good. I can talk to my Desir, my ancestors, and the House Vatir without its use. Again, we're not going to jump down that rabbit hole, but I don't need that board to remind me somebody's talking to me. Also, and I've seen way too many horror movies. I don't want nothing to do with that. So, Sarah, what do you think of the Ouija boards?
I have also seen way too many horror movies, but I think it is also, you know, with science, it is an amazing thing what the mind can do. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times when people are holding that, the energy that flows from their mind, I don't know the exact science terms for it, but causes that to move, that it's not some other being from another world. It's your own mind causing it to move in science way. But I wouldn't have one in the house because I've seen horror movies.
Been there, done that. So Owl of Omens asks, okay, he says, okay, so thus far, Sif is replenishment, Nana is devotion and piety, Skadi is dog determination. You really just summed up 3 hours pretty well. Yeah. To put it very simply, yes. But not just dog determination, also dignity and knowing when to push and when to pull. Yeah. All right. So we have a couple more that we still need to get to. So we're going to make these next couple kind of quick, guys. All right. We're going to cover, you know what? That's going to be a big one. We're going to go ahead and go through Yarth real quick. And then we're going to go through Gerther. And then we're going to do a Dune. So we're going to try to get through those before 2 a.m. So let's get into it. So the other the Alsvinir that we've got in regards to Njord is Yarth. May have also heard as Nerthus. We're using Yarth as the name that we're going to use for her. Would anyone be able to give us a quick synopsis of her? Some interest, anything you remember from the lore or some basic information on Yarth or Nerthus? Might grab Lauren on this one if she's willing.
Sure, of course. Well, she's our, literally our Mother Earth. She's Thor's mother. She, what she represents really for us is like the fertility of the earth. She, in connection to like pregnancy, fertility, she's one you can definitely turn to when you're trying to get pregnant, things like that. Tacitus wrote about in Germania how people would, bring her in a statue of her in a chariot through the town, and everyone would throw down their weapons. That was an interesting part of his account. So yeah, I mean, and she's the daughter of Night, of Not. That's an interesting point about her. Yeah, we talked about her. We talked about her a fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things that we really talked about was the importance of, the reference of when her carriage came down, the men threw down their iron,
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that our panel talked about quite a bit was, you can't have that. You can't have that fruitful, fertile time if you're continually pushing death and destruction. It's so much harder to rebuild if you're just going to tear it back down. It's hard to make babies when you're busy killing each other. Let's just be logical, So it's very much, we do need that abundance. We do need that security of that prosperity, and to have that fertility, and to have that abundance, and to have that growth, And it's a never-ending cycle of, of war and rebuilding, war and rebuilding, war and rebuilding, So that was a really big concept, or aspect that we talked about, was the significance of throwing down those weapons for fertility and for that goddess that exudes fertility. Does anybody have any thoughts that they would like to share on her with us? I'll just call on him. Sarah, do you have any thoughts on Yarth? Any personal thoughts or anything that you brought from our conversations that you'd like to present to the folk?
With she is always represented as being constantly pregnant, so it went with the cycle of life versus death. And I'm sorry, my mind just spaced. So for energy work, she would be a good one for fertility,
Mm-hmm.
for pregnant women, and those that also want children because of the whole cycle.
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know where I was going with that, but
it's okay, Sarah. It's getting late. It's getting late.
oh my goodness.
Githia Katie sends her regards. She does have to be up early, as do a couple more of us here having to be up in a few hours to work. So we're going to answer a couple questions here, but Githia Katie sends her regards. She said she got to go to bed, guys. She got to get up real early in the morning, as do a couple more of us here real quick. So let's go ahead and answer some questions. Now, the ones that we have, you know, Gerther, she's very... you know, being a goddess of fertility, being a goddess of fruitfulness, being a goddess of the earth, you know, that practical things that we can do, of course, would be support our pregnant women. Help Mandy with some baby blankets. You know, perform prayers and offerings for healthy babies. You know, this is all things that we can do. So the next two that we have are actually very, very in-depth. So I think we might answer some questions and save those two in particular for the next fifth brandy, because we spent one whole call on one of them, which is Gerther. And we spent 2 calls on Idun. So we have several hours just on those two alone. Of our experiences and our philosophical beliefs and our personal relationships on those. So let's go ahead and answer some questions as they come in. Is Jord a hypostasis of Frigga, or are they separate beings? They are separate beings. So I am a hard polytheist. Okay. I do understand that there might be where we call a goddess one thing here and one thing here, but they're the same, right? That happens with cultural, you know, as we move forward, you know, as our people migrate, and, you know, names might change a little bit. Spellings might change a little bit. You know, Wotan and Odin. But we are hard polytheists. Frigg is Frigg. Freya is Freya. Sif is Sif. Yarth is Yarth. I do not believe that any, and I don't think I've met somebody in the AFA yet that's going to tell you that they are all just Frigg. Hard polytheists. They are who they are. I'm a firm believer in that as well. All right. And ladies, is there any in particular advice that I'm going to go around the room here? And Swan says, my son just initiated his man making, and some people have asked about what that entails, but also what does woman making involve? Woman making involves a couple things. So when you look at presenting a woman for her woman making, you have 2 separate phases of that. Okay. And you'll see a lot of the time we want to do something for these young women when they turn 13, and young men, you know, when they turn 13. But they're not quite women yet. So there is something that you can do for young women when you feel that they are mature enough to start taking their religion seriously, start being studious, start being pious, and start being grown while still under the protection of the women folk and the parents as a child. And what we have is a horn ceremony where their fathers present the daughter. And by the way, we'll talk about that here, but you know, the father can present the daughter as his pride and his happiness and his joy. And in turn, the women, you know, bring her into the fold and take her from being a small child or a little girl into teaching her how to be a frith weaver. You know, the father presents her as his pride and his joy, but it's the women who are going to be teaching her. She'll always be the apple of daddy's eye, but now there's work to be done. Let the women take it from here. And from there, you know, you could present her a horn or other gifts that a woman could teach her, a craft or a skill, whether that's embroidery or crochet or art or music or whatever that is. And teach her skills of womanhood, but also teach her to be a frith weaver. And then when she becomes, you know, old enough to be an accepted adult female, that's when we are doing a woman making ceremony, where we are asking you, you know, to present yourself as on your own, mind you. I believe that, you know, the official, when you're like 18 years old, the man making, woman making ceremony, I think they should present themselves. You know, this isn't their parents' decision. This is them stepping up as an adult, you know, proclaiming their, you know, their loyalty to the Aesir in front of the folk, and they're furthering of the folk and furthering of the religion. So, but that's what I have. Does anybody else have any ideas on women, like the women making? What can we do for our young girls? What kind of special things can we do for, and we don't have to talk about women making, you know, one of our last things we might maybe talk about tonight. What special things can we do for our girls in particular? How could we get them involved? Go ahead, Anna.
I think the first thing we do is we start showing them what this sisterhood is, showing them all the joys that we have found within Elstree for ourselves, showing them that life is in fact really, really good here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lauren, what advice would you have for, let's say, a younger woman, like a teenage girl that's just starting out into Asatru? Where do you think that we should start someone at that age? What do you think the first steps would be?
I think it would be good to, I'm kind of a general believer in like mentors for young women and men, and you know, align them with a mentor of the folk that could teach them things that would be useful for adulthood, skills, knowledge, wisdom, abilities, practices. Also, you know, going, you know, making sure that they know about our sacred texts, are knowledgeable with those, and, you know, come to bloat with us, get to know their folk, you know, get to know the people at their local Hof. Yeah, there are a lot of things we can do to support them and help them learn about things as they head towards adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Heather, as a mom, and also as a friend, you know, how do you encourage them while keeping them on the right path? You know, we only want them to go to a reasonable level, right? But how do we keep it from getting too far off the path?
With Lauren, you know, her and Dan were practicing Asatru before me. So her and Daniel would do bloat together, and, you know, she read all the books that Daniel read. But for Lauren, the hardest thing was, I think the women have a hard time or are scared to cross that line with the teenagers. And it really hurt her feelings a lot because she would sit in a corner and the ladies wouldn't talk to her. Well, then when I talked to the ladies, and now she has BFFs all over the world. But, but I think just for our women not to, you know, like I said before, I call this the AFA world and that the other world. Like within the AFA, I know myself as a parent, and Lauren's been in the AFA since she was 8 or 9. I have never worried about an AFA member talking to Lauren, you know, without me around. To me, that's our trust zone, you know. So if I see an adult talking to my child, I don't like freak out about it. So for younger ladies or ladies who don't have children, and you see a teenage girl sitting there, they're already confused because they're a teenage girl, you know, and their feelings are all over the place. So nobody's going to yell at you if you go over there and just start a conversation, you know. one of the members at Thorshoff took Lauren under her wing, and Lauren loves her to death. And all Lauren talks about is how she hopes she don't really move away. But it's like, this woman is, I guess, in her 30s, but her and Lauren are inseparable. Like, somebody new will come to the Hoff, and me and Lauren won't be there that weekend, and she'll be like, all I could think is I wish Lauren was here, because we had a teenage girl come. So, the teenagers are impressionable, so how we treat them is going to be a lot of it. Like, how we take them in, how they see us acting towards them and towards others are going to be what shows them what to do and also true, to stay or to leave. You know what I mean? We want to put the best foot forward. We don't want to show them a whole bunch of sour things, because then they're not going to want to stick around for a long time. We want to show them the, bright and sparkly things, and crap them like a little raccoon,
I'm a fan of Trash Bandit. Don't think I'm not.
So, I mean, that's just my personal opinion and what I've seen with Lauren. And like I said, we started Lauren on Steve's first book. So she read that first, and then she read the Rune book. And then, she homeschools, so she has to do essays and stuff on certain runes or certain heroes. We just added into her homeschooling. So she probably knows more than I do if you ask her. But she's so quiet that you would think she doesn't know anything.
She knows a lot. That's a deep well, that little girl. For sure. So, Githia, Sheila, I'm going to give the last words to you for the night, because it looks like our questions are pretty quiet, and we're going to save Gerther and Idun for our next episode, because there is so much on those two that we unpacked as a panel. So I'm going to leave the last words to Githia McNallen. And Githia McNallen, please tell us why our women are important, and please tell us why our women should come home.
Where our women should come home? Oh, my goodness. Oh, I was just listening to the talk about our teens, and they are our future. And it is really interesting when you see the dynamics of teens at a place like a Hoff, whether there's a cluster of them and they tend to go off, and how you work with a group like that and bring them where they need to be, or an individual where you could, just like you were saying, Lauren, you could give her a task, let's beautify the place. You do the flowers, or you put out the tablecloths, or dust the ancestors' table. There's so many things that we can do with our young people. And part of it is to encourage in our children, when they're young, to be involved, to maintain a connection, to feel that this is family, and then they will stay and be the adults later on in life who are then the parents. We're the multi-generational thing is what we're really striving for. And I know at Odenshoff we have some wonderful families and very dedicated parents who have that in mind. That's what their goal is. Bringing women to the AFA, or Talisatrue, but particularly to the AFA, has always been a challenge, because the Viking mythos just draws the men, but there's not much for the women. And so many men have come from that direction. I think we just basically represent our faith for who we are. And I always say we are our deeds. Out at Odenshoff, where we give food out to so many people. It's been 610 different families since we began doing it on our own as our Odenshoff Food Pantry. We represent ourselves so well to the community. There's no way that people can find fault with us. Maybe they don't like our religion when it comes to our behavior and our values that we project to people in the community. They see it, they admire it. And I think people it takes a while for them to be willing to kind of make that next step. And I think I would like to see more opportunities to reach out to the public. And I've attempted doing some of that with ladies, using Craigslist of all things this past year. I thought a really provocative little phrasing for it. Of course, I got blocked by Craigslist. Didn't go very far because they figured out somebody complained, and that's all it took to get banned from it. But we have so much for our ladies. We have wonderful sisterhood, and you talk a lot about sisterhood in the AFA. And for people who don't have sisters or don't have close friends, I think I've never had many close friend as women as close friends. And I have that here. I have people I know I can trust. They can reach out to me. It's just becomes the most wonderful bonding place. And I don't understand when people ever come this way and then leave, and not many do. It's a problem of just trying to acquaint them with who we are, what we're about, and that this is the natural way of life. You know, we talk about the natural order, and a way also true is a natural order for a spiritual being. For those of European descent, this answers it. It gives you everything you need, and you know, we don't have sin. We just move on. We make changes. We improve ourselves. We exemplify that to our children, the people who are around us. They don't see us defeated. We pick up, we keep moving forward. We make mistakes, we acknowledge it, we move forward. And our values are so firm and so noble. I mean, so many words that we use just resonate so strongly, and nobility of the men and the women. I think over time we will have more women. It's again, our problem is just not having exposure, and people don't know. So I've got a couple ideas on that too. But yeah, and obviously, if anybody has tips on how to reach out to women better, we all are willing to listen and act on that, because I've spent my life doing this. This has been the best part of my life. The bulk of my life has been doing this, pretty close to half my life. And I would not ever walk away from it. I'm going to be doing it to the day I die. It's just, this is my life's work. I was a teacher for a long time, but this is my life's work. And it is work, but it's also filled with joy and benefits to all who interact with us. So I don't need to say much more. As you know, I can go on and on, but I just feel it's such an honor having these wonderful women with us. You know, it's taken a while to even get our Githias, so many of us, and it's going to continue to grow and encourage. So maybe you should go through what it takes to actually become part of the Go There program, just so people have an idea of what their first step is going to be to make that happen.
So our Go There program, for those who are ever interested in what that entails, you first must be an oath folk builder of the Asatru Folk Assembly. You then have to go through the academic program, and you have to mentor with an ordained Gothi or Githia. There are specific ones that we have mentor because they have their hands in literally everything that the church does. You need to learn how to run events. You need to learn how to run hofs. You need to learn how to manage and lead people. You need to learn how to counsel and do so with empathy. You need to learn the spiritual might and lore of our church so that you can properly educate and lead our people. There's so many things that go into that. And it all starts with one teenager in South Carolina who's a very, very deep well and already knows many of these things. We always joke one of these days she's going to be sitting here where me and Heather are. She's going to be bossing us around. She kind of bosses us around already, Heather.
She told me to tell you to stop saying that. You make her nervous.
Make her nervous. She makes me nervous. But all right, guys, it has been a wonderful episode. Again, I think the next time we get together, we are going to talk about Girder, and we are going to talk about Idun, and I'm pretty sure we could fill about 5 hours with that. right? So we do appreciate everybody being here. So while we were here, producer Nick, do we have an update? We do. So since we have been live, we are now up to $9,215 going towards Njordshof. It looks like we raised $200 just during this show. So you Phrasehof Fund. Yes, sir. Sorry, it's late. I'm tired. But yeah, we raised $200 tonight just for Phrasehof, you guys. That's amazing. I mean, getting these hops are important, and it's a form of worship, and we can't do that without your generosity and without your hard work. So we appreciate each and every one of you every single time you donate. So thank you very much. It's you guys that are making this happen and making the temple to Freya reality. So with that, we are going to go ahead and close the show. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Tell your mom about it. Tell your brother about it. Tell your boss about it. Tell everybody about it. Come see us next time. Victory Never Sleeps is every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. Same cool time, same cool place. So we'll talk to you guys next time. And until next time, remember, victory never sleeps. Have a good night, everybody.